pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor to the flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And we'll have an invocation by Councilman Baker.
Let us pray. Dear most Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you blessed us to see. Dear most Heavenly Father, bless each member that's here that represent the city. Bless our law enforcement, our firefighters, our police officers, EMS on a daily basis as they go out and protect us. Dear most Heavenly Father, bless each council member as they make the decisions to help this great city to become even greater. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And again, I'd like to welcome everybody that's here to join us this evening. It's great to see a large group here in the audience with us, and you're always welcome back to join us at any time at our council meetings. We're going to begin with visitors' comments. So if we have anybody that would like to have a comment, this would be for any item that's not on the consent agenda or the regular agenda. All right, we'll move on to presentations. We have a presentation. There's a proclamation. I've signed a proclamation tonight for approving, proclaiming April this year of Fair Housing Month. And we don't have a representative here to present it.
No, sir.
Okay. So unless y'all want me to read it, we'll move on. We have item 2 is introduction of the new Assistant Parks and Recreation Director.
Yes. Good evening. I wanted to introduce, this is Jonathan Phillips. He is our new Assistant Parks and Recreation Director. I'm so excited to have him on. So I'm going to let him say a few words.
Okay.
Hello guys, like
Hello.
you said, Jonathan Phillips. I've been in Parks and Rec starting in 2006 as a lifeguard. I was also part of the swim team coaching staff back then as well. Back in West Virginia, if you are getting it from my accent. Also moved down here back in 2010-ish and started at Angleton as a front desk employee. That's where I've originally met Robin back then. Moved up from front desk to facility manager. Then went from Angleton to Freeport as a recreation supervisor, and now have landed here with you all. So I'm excited to be a part of the team and do great things for the city of Lake Jackson.
Welcome.
Oh, that's well.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is declaration of conflict of interest. This is where council members have the opportunity to declare if they have a conflict with any agenda item. Is there a conflict to declare? No. Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. We have consent agenda item 1 is approved minutes from March 7th and February 28th of City Council. We have accept board and commission minutes from Keep Lake Jackson Beautiful. And then we have item 3 is approve the 2022 street closures for the following events and dates. I'm just going to do the events, which is the concerts series, the Independence Day, Our Lady Queen of Peace Fall Festival, Festival of Lights Tree Lighting and Pajama Jam, and Festival of Lights Festival and Festival of Lights Parade. And then item 4 is approve an addendum to the interlocal agreement with Velasco Drainage District for storm sewer videotaping and ditch grading. Do we have a request to remove any items from the consent agenda?
No, sir.
If not, I'll take a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I request approval for this agenda item. Consent agenda items 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
And second, all right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right, thank you. We'll move on to regular agenda, and we have item 1, which is to discuss allowing residents to keep chickens in the city limits. And we have 2 speakers on that. And so, Gal, you need to state your name and address, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Ducote, and I live at 407 Dogwood Street. And I am Sierra Romero. I live at 410 Dogwood Street.
Okay.
First, we're just going to introduce ourselves just a little bit, and then we're going to get why we're here tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so me, I have 2 children. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm wanting to come to you because we're wanting to repeal the current ordinance here in Lake Jackson about owning chickens by trying to adopt the current ordinance in Angleton. So I have 2 children. I wanted to teach my kids about responsibility as well as a sustainable food system when it comes to chickens. As we know with kids, trying to give them $2 because they make their bed, that really does not mean much to them when they're in their 20s because they realize if they don't make it, and mom's still not going to give them $2. So this right now, during the crisis, I want to teach my kids about adapting to a crisis rather than reacting. So right now, I think this would be a perfect opportunity to be able to have some chickens legally and responsibly as well. But after I reached out to City Council, I wasn't sure if I really believed in myself or if I was a crazy stay-at-home mom. So I reached out to my neighbor. And my neighbor is very parallel when it comes to me as far as believing in nutrition as well as teaching our kids about real responsibility and a sustainable food source. So I reached out to her and she completely supports. So she's been my backbone and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Like I said, my name is Sierra Romero. I have lived in Brazoria County my entire life. I have deep roots here. I have a lot of love for this community. And, you know, a lot of the same reasons that Jen wants to have chickens. I want them for my child. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have the time to, you know, invest into something like this. And, you know, I want my child to learn the value of what he puts in his body. So, you know, we can go to the store and buy eggs, but where's the value in that? It's a disposable thing rather than, you know, something that he's earned through his own hard work. And, you know, when she called me up, I was like, yeah, absolutely. I've been wanting chickens for years, but, you know, Lake Jackson's where I live and that's where I love to be. And I wasn't willing to give up, you know, being in the city and being around my family and, you know, like I said, the area that I love to get chickens. So when she called me up, I was like, heck yeah, I get to have best of both worlds, right? So I'll give it back to her.
Okay, so after gaining support of my neighbor, I really wanted to dig in deeper because I wanted to see, okay, it's just 2 moms, but maybe this might be more. So she started a petition. We did a change.org because we wanted to really get the feel of our community because this isn't just about us. You know, we want to see how everybody else feels because we value and respect the opinions of our neighbors and those that are around us, whether they're for or against us. We started a petition as well as we went into our neighboring county. We went to our neighbors. We went to several different nutrition stores that were active members in. We were at 409 signatures. We're at 410. We got one at the door. Thank you for that. 410 signatures, and we got this done in 2 weeks. It has just been her and I, and anybody who decided that they wanted to share this through networking has been happy to oblige. But I didn't want to stop there. I didn't want to just know about my neighbors, how they felt about this. I wanted to know about our law enforcement as well, because the law enforcement is the one who's going to be directly involved in this, especially our humane officers. As I reached out to Lake Jackson PD, our humane officers are actually dealing with an influx issue right now. I did do several open records that I have for you guys as well. So starting from 2020 to now, because I wanted to focus on the pandemic, this is where this has actually exploded. Just since 2020, they have dealt with 35 calls to now, 2 of which were mine because I was in regards to wanting to do this petition. So 33 calls from 2020 to now, Lake Jackson PD has dealt with chicken calls. And its majority of them is because somebody called and said, this person has chickens, or it's just telling on their neighbors because they knew they weren't allowed to have it. So their babies were taken away. As I've gotten into the community, it's also been rewarding too because a lot of these mothers are wanting to do the same thing, and that's why they got it. They got it for their daughters to wake up at 5 a.m., get chicken eggs, and then get ready for school because they wanted to teach them real responsibility. This also was also for them for a sustainable food source. People are panicked right now because they don't know what's going to happen with this pandemic as prices are rising and resources are dwindling. If there's anything we have learned, outsourcing for resources never works, but we continue to do so. Everything in our community, from the material, the birds, the food, is right here. And me, I believe wholesomely in community, so I would rather pour back into our community and get back out as well. This is something that can help them financially as well as help their families. We've gone to several different feed stores. We've gone to Tractor Supplies. We've put out our petition. We've told them about what's going on, because this is something that'll increase their business as well. We're able to sell chickens in town, but we cannot touch them as residents. So you're bringing them in, your children are seeing them, and you can't even, you have hopes for this, but you have to tell your child no. We've also gone to, like I said, on the law enforcement side, I have also gone to Angleton, because when it comes to trying to repeal this ordinance, we are trying to adopt Angleton's ordinance for several reasons. So I wanted to compare apples to apples, permit versus non-permit. According to Angleton, and I have all these records for you as well. According to Angleton's ordinance, as of 2020 to now, they have had 12 calls, 4 of which just wanted to know if they could have chickens, and if so, did they need a permit? 5 of them were about a chicken had gotten out and it was in someone's yard. A chicken was kicking mulch onto the sidewalk. A chicken had died. That is about it, for a little over 2 years. Now, I do know that one of the main reasons that I see online when it comes to your ordinance as to why we cannot have it is due to nuisance. So I wanted to go a little step further. I reached out to Lake Jackson PD and I wanted to see a real nuisance number. I asked for a month, but I was given 22 days, but I'm fine with that. 22 days of nuisance calls for dogs. They had 27 calls just on dogs in 22 days. That is a real nuisance. What we're coming and proposing to you, we do not want roosters. That is where the real nuisance comes from. We are trying to adopt Angleton's ordinance in its entirety. Now, I do know that they allow other animals. However, our main discussion tonight is just in regards to chickens. This isn't something that is just about a sustainable food source or about teaching our kids responsibility. It's about helping our community and helping push aside what is currently going on in the world. People are afraid and they react out of emotion and fear. We're trying to bring that down by giving them what they want reasonably and responsibly and legally. That's why we're trying to propose by doing it with a permit. Not just any permit, a permit that has shown that it actually works. This is something that addresses everyone's concerns when it comes to the cleanliness, the size of the coop, to make sure that the birds have enough room to be able to move around. How many birds? We are not asking any more than 6 birds for this, just like Angleton's. The spacing of the coops, they need to be X amount of feet away from property lines, as well as habitable areas as well. So you're making sure you're showing respect to your neighbors for where your coops or placement are at. This is something too that I thought was pretty great, because I didn't know about this, but this is something if we could do, we could give to an option for our children. It also addresses FFA as well as 4-H. That is something our children here in Lake Jackson cannot be able to take advantage of, because we're not allowed to give them that opportunity. So also, a lot of the concerns too, some of the concerns that people were talking about were pests or nuisances coming into the area. What a lot of people don't realize, unless you have chickens, is chickens are actually great pest control. They'll eat small mice, they'll eat small snakes. They're actually great for mosquitoes, ticks, fleas. I don't know about you, but I'd love to help reduce the pollutants that are put in our seriously, they are great pest controls. But to be able to reduce the toxins that's put into our air because they're automatically taking care of it naturally sounds like a wonderful idea to me. By us coming to you by trying to give you a permit option, it'll also help offset the costs that could be incurred by having humane officers go out and do the inspections. Just like Angleton's ordinance, the humane officers are the ones that goes out and inspects the coops to make sure that everything is up to code before they sign off on it. By giving you a permit in place, the funds are there to help offset those costs. Let's see, what else are we? Also, there's some information in there as well. One last thing, at the end of your packet, there's 2 things in there. So I reached out to the Texas Agricultural Life here in Angleton by Texas A&M. They actually do this for a living. They can come out to the community if they're requested to, just to talk about how to raise chickens, how to take care of your coops, how to take care of the manure, everything in your ground, in your gardens, for free. If you wanted them to come out and inspect your coops and your chickens before the permit is even signed off by the humane officers, they come out for free. They also do classes every year to teach you. It's like $20 to teach you everything that you need to know to make sure that not only are you doing it properly, educationally, but correctly. And if you decided to, because I know some are concerned, well, what about if they use them for food? They teach you about the different types of birds too. That way you get the proper birds, whether it's about food and eggs or if it's just about eggs. And if you wanted to choose to kill them humanely, they also teach you how to do that to prepare them for meat as well. To closing thoughts, I just wanted to thank Ms. Rhonda Seth as well as Mr. Travis Pate and my wonderful neighbor and everyone else that is in this community that has given me their wonderful stories as to why they want this and supporting us, giving us all these great ideas to reach out, to try to come at you guys with everything possibly thought of from a community level, from a law enforcement level, and from moms levels.
Question.
Absolutely.
If you allow, will the chickens be penned up all the time, or will they be running around in the backyard?
We do not want them free range. We
Okay.
would want them in a coop, in a humane coop, where they are given enough room to roam around, but not just willy-nilly. We don't want the mess all over our yards just as much as y'all don't want it. So it would be in an enclosure.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the challenges that when you start talking about the enclosure is the recommended square footage for each animal. I think the recommendation is 2 square foot per animal for their own personal area, but then up to 8 square feet per animal for being able to roam in the pen. So when you start talking about 6 animals, 6 hens, that's starting to get a coop is getting a little bit large. And then when you start looking at some of these ordinances that we've seen, that I've did the research today again, is that a lot of cities have put setbacks associated with the pens. And when you start looking at some of the small lot sizes that we have in the city, that's going to restrict some people from not being able to do it just because of the size of their lots. The other thing is that I grew up around chickens. I grew up on my summers. I grew up down here, but my summers, as soon as the final bell rang on the school year, we loaded up in the car, and we went off to the farm to work on the farm to help the grandparents and stuff. And there's a specific reason why the chicken pens were so far away from the house.
The smell.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and yes, and I realize there's going to be good citizens that are going to be good caretakers, and there's going to be bad ones. That are going to be just like we have with dogs and cats.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, what you're asking for us to do is again, to introduce another group of animals into the community that will require some management from the city. Either through just a permitting process, but I mean, some of these cities, I've looked at their permits, that whenever you have a permit, you even though you got a permit last year and you're coming back for a new permit for this year, they do another inspection to make sure you're clean. So that's extra workforce responsibilities. And again, you say that the permit could help offset that, and it may a little bit. But that's just some of the challenges that you're going to face. We're not a farming community. We never have been a farming community, and so that's why we haven't had livestock inside the city limits, unless it's out in the farms area. They're larger acreage and stuff. So that's just some of the things that I have. But I'll have some other comments or some questions if somebody else from council has questions.
So ladies, first of all, thank you for your research and your hard work and coming prepared and offering some solutions. My boss I currently work for, he said, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. And I think that's a great idea. So good job on that. And I'm sorry, you had how many signatures in what time period?
We had 2 weeks, and we had 409 when we walked in the door. We had one more signature out
So,
the door.
so 410
yes.
in that short time period. So good job on that hard work. I will say this, I'm not personally somebody, I don't want to keep up with chickens. I don't. But I would love nothing more than to be able to trade my neighbor some tomatoes for some fresh eggs. Absolutely. One thing that I know that this has come before council quite a few times before. And one thing that I do think we have to acknowledge is that things have changed from 10 years ago to 5 years ago to even a year ago. Our country is uneasy. Our citizens are uneasy, and there is a supply chain issue. I went to Walmart today, and the same things that I've been looking for, the shelves are bare. So we can't do anything about the big mess, but we certainly have it within our power to give our citizens some security, and to allow them to be self-sufficient and provide for themselves. Absolutely, outsourcing never works long-term. Looking at the Angleton Ordinance, I have gone through the Angleton Ordinance forwards and backwards for several days now. It is very well written. It addresses every issue that could come up, and we're not Angleton. We're about 8,000 people more than Angleton. But not everybody's going to want chickens. But some people do, and there is a reasonable, rational way to address this, to where that we can both be good neighbors and allow our citizens to take care of themselves. I took it a step further and actually contacted Chris Whitaker, the Angleton city manager, and I just asked him, I said, because I like to look at things from all perspectives, and I asked him, I said, all right, you guys have lived with this for a couple of years now. I said, what would you have done differently, and have you had any problems crop up that you weren't anticipating? And as I was talking to him, their code enforcement lady came in, and so he put me on speakerphone, and both of them answered the same. We have more problems with dogs than we've ever had with chickens. Chickens have been a non-issue with our citizens. I also spoke with one of the current Angleton City Council, just to get a little different perspective, and they agreed. They said we should have done this a long time ago. So I just think that we have an opportunity here to, I put a little Facebook post up about, 4 o'clock today. The responses, remember when we did the tattoo parlor post?
Yes.
Yes, it was similar to that. We've had probably close to 100 comments at this point, and at least 95% are in favor of. So I definitely think that there is a need to have a little flexibility on this issue. So, and yes, does it put more burden on our humane officers? Yes, but we have control over the permit fees. And it's something that we should explore and look at a little deeper.
Did you happen to get did they have a count? Did they give you a count of how many permits they issued in the city of Angleton since they opened it? I don't know if you asked them.
I
or
did
you
go
have
to
that information?
the city and ask them for it. Unfortunately, I did not get it back because they get 10 days in order but I did go request it. It was put in for 2020 to now because I was trying to focus just on the same time frame. That request is put in with them, but they do have 10 days to get it to you, and they have not sent it to me yet. But yes, sir, the request was put in.
I'd just be curious to know how many requests they've had.
Same, but they've had far fewer calls to their PD than Lake Jackson has. I think it was like 20 versus 35.
It was 30. There was 35 calls from 2020 to now, 2 of which were mine. So 33 calls for Lake Jackson PD from 2020 to now. 2020 to now in Angleton, it was 12 calls, 4 of which just wanted to know if they could even have chickens. So the rest, there was 8 of them, and it was just minor things, like, a chicken had gotten killed by a dog, which we also understand. If there is a predator incident, that is the responsibility of those that owns the chickens. That's not the city's responsibility. Just like you would take that same responsibility for your domestic pets. If something happened to your cat or your dog, then that's something that's on you. If a bird got to it, a hawk or something came out and it injured it, as a responsible pet owner, you're going to take care of your animal. The same thing's going to happen with your chickens.
Let me ask you a question. I'm your neighbor,
Yes, sir.
and I've got a very docile dog. Never been a problem, never barks, never does anything. We go forward with this permit, and you bring in your chickens. Next thing you know is my dog is a nuisance. You pick up the phone and call PD. Say, my neighbor's dog's a nuisance. My chickens aren't laying because he's barking all the time. So where do we divide the line?
I just like what you said too. I do have some neighbors that don't like children, and I have 2 children. One is 2.
I'm not talking about children.
I understand,
I'm
but
talking about,
I understand that. But my
let's get
children
back-
can be
yes.
a nuisance just for playing, and they can be a nuisance just for playing, just for coming in. I'm in an older neighborhood, and some are not kind just because my kid's out there playing with his ball, but there's a respect line that should be drawn with that. And if something happens, you know, that's where you go and try and communicate. If my my neighbor's dog is acting up or something happens, but I know when mine does, I get on to my dog because I respect my neighbors if something was to happen. Now, I understand my neighbors may not do the same thing, but I care enough to do that. But there's going to be situations that are going to
No,
incur when
and-
it comes to
and again,
nuisance.
that's why I'm thinking beyond just the interest of having chickens and adding chickens to be able to have fresh eggs and so forth. I'm talking about the issues that will come before council for us to go address. And then that will be a true issue that will come before us that, like I just explained, is that a neighbor will have a docile dog, and then then somebody will have chickens, and their chickens will stop laying, and then we'll have to make a decision on where we're going to provide the discipline, where we have to make change. Do
So
we
I-
discipline the dog, or what do we do?
So
Yeah.
I think we do have the opportunity, I mean, they're saying to use the Angleton City Ordinance as guidance, but we are better familiar with our lot sizes and all of that, and I think that we have the ability to, I mean, like, if you read through this, like, you have to be off your neighbor's property line, you have to be so far off of it. We have the ability to control that somewhat, and I mean, the honest truth is that these other cities haven't had that problem. I spoke with their city council, I spoke with the city manager, and they're just not finding these problems after several years. And it just, I mean, we haven't dealt with the dog issue. I mean, last council meeting, we had somebody complaining because somebody had 12 dogs and they had to listen to them bark all the time. I mean, I just think we have bigger issues than if somebody wants 6 chickens.
The thing that concerns me is what Mayor read about the accommodations per chicken, so many square foot and everything. You look at the lot, my backyard probably wouldn't hold 2 chickens. That's the thing that, you know, you try not to disturb your neighbor, but if you go by the square footage and all that, you can't help but be close to them. That's what concerns me.
But I think if we set those requirements in place, saying, okay, and this one actually was 4 foot per chicken.
Right.
And then I think it was even a greater number than you had said for them to roam. I mean, we have the ability to set those standards. And is everybody gonna fit into that? No, but does that mean then everybody should be punished and not allowed because somebody else's yard is smaller?
And that would be part of the inspection process as well. You know, whenever we have the humane officer come out, they would also measure, make sure that, you know, these animals are well taken care of, that they have the space to roam and live comfortably. So, like, you know, Ms. Seth said, not everyone's going to be able to accommodate that in their yards. I've lived in a tiny little, you know, yard home, and then my home now has a much larger yard, and so I would have the opportunity to do that now. And you know, people may not want to do the chickens even if they have a large enough yard, but we'd have that chance to have that community amongst our neighbors where, you know, like Mrs. Seth said, we can trade tomatoes for eggs or things like that. So say you want the benefits, but your yard is too small, you can easily go to one of your neighbors and say, hey, I've got XYZ, you've got eggs, can we barter, can we trade? So, you know, everyone could benefit in a community, especially our neighborhood. We're all very close.
Not just
But
that.
if I'm playing devil advocate here, I got a yard that can handle all these chickens, somebody else doesn't. Well, you let him do it, how could well, your yard, well, you're punishing me because my yard's not big enough, I bought the house and the lot. See, playing devil's advocate, what's gonna happen down the road? See, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's.
Has anybody had those problems?
As far as everyone that I've
That's
spoken,
Angleton, I'm worried about Lake
as
Jackson.
far as
I
everybody that
understand.
I've
I'm
talked
worried
to
about
in Lake
Lake
Jackson, I mean, there was more positive feedback than I had negative. You know, they're
I'm saying, that's what you have to see might happen down the road. She can do it, how can, well, your yard, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying this happened, I'm saying that you're opening the door for it to happen.
right. I
And I'm
understand that
not,
some of,
Angleton's a great
Right.
city.
Oh, yeah,
But
no,
Lake Jackson's not
but
Angleton, so.
I understand that and I
That's
respect
where I'm
that.
coming from.
Some of the neighborhoods, they are smaller, but that's where we're just coming and asking about adopting Angleton's ordinance. We understand Lake Jackson is very different, but
I
even
understand,
if
but we're
even if you can help adjust it to where it fits Lake Jackson's criteria, to where it helps it's specialized on based on the different types of lots, you'll have that flexibility to do so. But we're asking is Can you at least give us a legal and responsible option such as a permit to do so? Because right now, people are obtaining it and doing so illegally. We're trying to bring that down, but it doesn't have to be everything in Angleton. But if you can adopt it, we're just coming at it with a permit. The reason why we were suggesting Angleton's permit, because it addressed all the concerns that a lot of people had, everything when it comes to nuisance.
Angleton's permit sounds real good, but we're looking at what can happen down the road. I'm not discussing the permits. I hadn't had a chance to read it when I came and sat on my desk. It's the first time I've seen it.
Yes, sir.
Their permits are probably excellent, but I'm looking at the whole shooting match. Okay? If one example is, my yard's not big enough, you know, that's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to tear
No,
up
that's why,
Angleton's
you know,
ordinances.
one of the ideas we had, but we weren't sure about, was maybe proposing a sliding scale of 3 to 6 birds.
Good solution.
The only reason why we weren't sure about that, and the reason for this is for a few different reasons. First off, looking at it on the humane side of the birds. If you were to obtain chickens, you cannot just obtain one chicken because it is their empaths, they're social creatures, they need extra birds, and if you just have one, it'll just lay over and die. By giving it to where you can give a sliding scale of at least 3 to 6 chickens, this will do a few other things as well. It'll make it to where the enclosures can be smaller for the smaller the lots as well. And it'll also help give law enforcement a little bit of wiggle room, as well as, you know, hey, you know, I'm looking at this, I think 3 is great for your lot as well. You know, if we try to get it too much bigger than this, the enclosure, it just wouldn't work for the permit as far as the spacing goes. This was just an idea we had been talking about, but we hadn't put it in it because we weren't sure if we were overstepping boundaries, and that was it. But that was something we did think about and talk about, was proposing a sliding scale. That way, for those that have smaller lots, they would just have a smaller amount of birds, and then their enclosures would be smaller. We just weren't sure if it would be overstepping boundaries by putting that option in there. But that was what we discussed
You
as a
gotta
partial
cover all
solution.
your bases. You gotta
Yes,
cover
sir.
what can happen down the road.
And that's a good solution.
Matt, you have anything else?
Anybody else?
I'm looking at the Lake Jackson ordinance, and I find myself wondering if I could keep a potbelly pig as a pet,
No,
or would that be a livestock?
no, that's livestock. I'm sorry.
Could I keep a parakeet in my house as a pet?
That's different,
Yeah.
yes.
That's not foul?
No, that's considered you can go to a pet store to go buy that.
A
That's a
pot
pet.
belly was brought up here before in front of council.
No, you can't have goats.
Goats.
Well, I don't know anything about chickens. I did not spend any time on any farms. And so I'm just wondering, you know, what the difference is between a parakeet and a chicken or a duck or whatever.
One legs or 2 legs?
Parakeets don't like me either, I guess, but, or, you know, parakeets are small, but there are certainly parrots that are as big or bigger than chickens, so it can't be a size-based delineation. So I just sort of wonder,
One's more domestic than the other one, maybe,
The,
in a cage in the house.
and I don't want to come off saying that I'm against this, okay? All I want to say is that there's challenges, and not everybody's up for a challenge. And the next issue that we could have, is that, again, a family decides they're going to have chickens, and they didn't do the study, and they didn't do the research, and they go spend the money for the chickens and for the pens, and then 6 months down the road, none of the kids want to get up at 5 o'clock. Nobody wants to go out at dark to close them up. Everybody forgets that there should be a pair of boots to go into the pens that never goes anywhere else. And so there's all kind of challenges out there. You can go online, you can find research on salmonella outbreaks and stuff associated with backyard chickens. Again, if you're responsible and you can handle it, they can be taken care of very, very fairly and very well. And so, you know, the only thing is that if we would go forward with this, is we would have to put safeguards in there to make that possible. And those are challenges that Angleton Ordinance doesn't do anything about, okay? Angleton is completely different than Lake Jackson. Angleton started out as a farming community.
Lake Jackson did not.
Lake Jackson did not. Okay, and so they have, a lot of their lots that are in the older parts of town are very large. The same here, we have some very large, but not a whole bunch. But most of our old lots are very small. So again, it's just, Angleton Ordinance is a good place to start at. There's other examples that you could use, but again, there's a lot of hurdles that would have to be overcome, I think, for me to be able to say that we could go forward with this on my own.
The reason we chose Angleton was just because it is so close, and it is something that all of us have familiarity with. So that's why we went with Angleton's. We understand that, not every person's going to be responsible, and it's the same with dogs.
It's the same with dogs. It's the same with cats. It's the same with children.
Yeah,
You know, it
going
is.
to be, responsible, and we give out fines if a dog barks too much, if there's a citation, because they're barking excessively, and you get multiple calls about the same dog. So, I'm not saying what y'all should do. Absolutely, I'm not trying to overstep my boundaries, but along the same lines, if you're not getting your chickens kept in the coop, if they're getting out and they're causing problems, then you get a citation. It's the
Just
same
like with your
essential
kids and
thing.
your dogs.
Exactly.
No, it's not the same. But
So real quick,
just a minute, just a minute. Have either of you ever raised chickens?
I have not. No.
Okay. So what's the lifespan of a chicken?
I believe it's about 4 to 5 years.
No, it can be up to 15 years.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing is you know how long a chicken can lay eggs?
Only 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what do you do with your chickens after 2 to 3 years?
I had planned on finding a humane way to,
Use them as meat.
use it as meat. Absolutely.
Well, currently we have an ordinance that doesn't allow you to butcher in the city.
Okay.
So that's something else we would have to change
Okay, that's good
to
to
do
know.
something like that. But anyway, that's just some of the things that, again, I think it's just like when we start talking about humane issues with dogs and cats and stuff. I think the reason why we have a big problem with dogs and cats in the area is because we don't put enough effort, be it us or all the different organizations that work with those animals, put enough effort into educating the community to be sure they understand what kind of responsibilities they're taking on before they take it on. And so, again, to move forward with something like that, it would be, again, it would take education of the individuals before they even take on this endeavor and so forth.
With the Texas AgriLife extension that we did contact, we could also write that into it. They are required to take this class on how to take care of these chickens before they take that on, before,
their permit.
that has to be signed off before they can get that permit. This is just on the spot, me saying, hey, maybe we can do that as part of the permit process.
That's true.
Just so that, like you said, they're gonna be more responsible because they have that education.
And that's the thing, is I think if you do the education up front,
Yes.
at the end of the day, is you're gonna have less people that are gonna ask for them
Absolutely.
because they're gonna realize that it is a lot of work and it takes on like a lot of responsibility. And it's a lot more responsibility than a 3-year-old or 6-year-old kid can take on. It's gonna, and so forth, so it's something. So you had something to say?
Yes, sir. Travis Pate, 302 Caladium. I live in an area where my yard would be too small for a chicken coop. I might be able to have the 3. It'd have to be smack dab in the middle of my yard. It wouldn't work for me, but I don't care about chickens so much. I like pools. My yard is also too small for a pool with the offset from the back of my easement area that the city allots as well. So to Buster's point of there being punishment for people with smaller yards, that goes from everything. I mean, that is from a pool to how big your chicken coop can be. So, if you want to own more than 3 chickens, then yeah, you may want to move to the north side of town where the yards might be a little bit bigger.
You and I understand that, but Joe,
Yes,
next
sir.
door
And
neighbor
I
don't
understand
realize
that.
that.
I get that, but that's why we have ordinances in place. That's why we have laws in place. It tells you that a stop sign means you stop at it, and if you don't stop at it, then
I
you get a
understand.
ticket or a
I
warning.
understand.
What was the other thing that was said? I think that was it. Oh, I did talk to a couple of Angleton cops. They never see chickens. It's very seldom that they have to deal with these chickens. So that's just from a law enforcement side of view and from someone who has a lot too small to own chickens or have a pool. Now, I don't see it as a punishment. I see it as a poor choice on my part for purchasing a house with too small of a backyard. All right, that's all.
I had a question for Sherry. You
got
maybe
some
I'll
more-
answer.
You got some more in the audience.
Okay.
Got some more.
My name is Gary Hunter, 117 Mesquite Street. I'm opposed to repealing our laws on chickens. I've got some notes here I'd like to go through one at a time. Shouldn't take too long, but we already covered, I guess, the chickens require a certain amount of space, and the size of people's lots and stuff causes issues, so I won't beleaguer you on that. But chickens also attacked flies. Like, we need another fly outbreak like we had last year. And they attract predators: hawks, raccoons, snakes, coyotes, foxes, bobcats, possums, and your pet dog. Yes, every neighbor's dog wants to eat a chicken. They smell. There's nothing worse than the ammonia-like smell that comes from chicken poop cooking in the hot summer sun. And hens are not as quiet as you might think. They proudly announce the fresh egg they lay. And sometimes one of the hens assumes the position of the rooster and crows every morning. That happens. In chicken coops, without permitting and proper inspection, a shabby chicken coop can become a pretty big ballistic missile in a hurricane. In hurricane season, what happens to the chickens when the owners evacuate? Who takes care of them? Do they go with the owners? And then there's the chicken math. This is inevitably the truth. 4 hens becomes 6, 6 becomes 10, and 10 becomes 100. I've personally seen this happen. What happens is the guy starts with 4, and he's got more eggs than he can consume, and he realizes he can sell them. Ah, shit, I get 2 more. I can make more money. Next thing you know, he's got 10. Man, I'm making money. And next thing you know, he's got 100. And this is inhumane for the chickens themselves. They are so packed into this small area, before the city can even find out that this is going on, it's happening. It happens, trust me on that. That's all I've got to say. Any questions for me?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sherry Hunter. I live at 117 Mesquite. I'm originally from Colorado. Lake Jackson is a wonderful city that it is from where I came from. I knew somebody in Colorado that had chickens in the city. Unreal. If you were living in my neighborhood, I'd be calling. I'm telling you right now, I would be calling. We don't need this. We have enough trouble in areas when we live in older neighborhoods and people want to start bringing in animals. Like everybody said, what, are you going to bring a pig in next? Oh, well, I want a goat, so can I have a goat? So I'm going to come to you and say, well, can I have a goat? I just don't think it's fair. I have a friend that lives out in Brazoria County. She has chickens. If I want eggs, I get them from her. You want to teach your kids about eggs, I understand. Get on Google, get on whatever, and teach them how to do it, but I don't think it belongs in the city of Lake Jackson. We have enough issues going on in the city of Lake Jackson, and I don't think we need that in the city.
Call the question.
Hold on.
And Modesto
Some
had-
other people.
There's other,
Modesto had something, right?
this was not Sherry.
Sherry, do you remember when the state law was proposed? Did they give latitude to the city to go and create guidelines
Yes.
like Angleton? I didn't look
They
at.
weren't detailed. But they definitely said people were allowed to have 6. I mean, they were like,
Yeah.
you have to let them have at least 6. And so the way I saw it was, the way I remember it anyway, I could be wrong, is that we would have to let people have 6.
I didn't know if the
They
future
really
would
didn't
marry-
have to.
if future legislation could override.
It has passed. It has passed. I talked, that was another phone call I made, this was to our state representative. And it actually has passed the House several times. He's actually going to be, not co-authoring. He co-authored last time. He'll be authoring it this time. So it's passed the Texas State House several times already. It has stalled in the Senate because TML lobbies against it. And I actually don't disagree with this. TML has been lobbying against it because they say that should be a local decision. And frankly, I think the fewer state and federal laws we have to deal with, the better. So I do think this is a thing, but that's where it's been.
Just-
But it will go back out.
To further answer your question is that what the state legislature was trying to pass is that it would allow you 6 or less animals. But then it gave the responsibility back to the cities, or allow the cities the flexibilities to put restrictions. And that could be setbacks, it could be size of
coop or?
how many square feet you have to give to a chicken and all that kind of stuff. So one reason why it hasn't gone forward in the Senate also is because they felt that a city could sit there, even if they passed it, that's the way it was written, that a city could come in with restrictions and disallow animals. Because there wasn't a provision that says you have to, just says that you, well, yeah, so they could put enough restrictions in there where it would make it almost impossible where you could have animals. So that's one of the reasons why it was hung up. Because I was sitting on a legislative group for HJC, and that's what they were talking about, the issue with it. But anyway,
Does anybody else have anything?
Anyway, the answer is, yeah, they could completely erase what we're doing here. They're the state.
Glenn Jones, 118 Cypress, and I too have a yard too small for chickens, but we're getting all excited about these 310 signatures, and I wonder about the other 26,000 plus people that live in Lake Jackson and moved here because Lake Jackson had a certain flair and a certain ambiance that they wanted. I hear the rhetoric about dogs. When I moved from Freeport, we didn't have chickens in Freeport. Okay, no, we may have had chickens in Freeport, but we didn't have chickens in Lake Jackson, and I knew we were going to have dogs and cats. So to introduce chickens on the strength of, a few signatures, I think we really need to think about this. This is not something that we need to go out there and let all the citizens decide. I've seen when there's a real hot button and people really want something, I've said at enough of these meetings and commissions that I see them out here. I don't see a whole lot of support for chickens. I appreciate what they're trying to do, but a city can't be all things to all people. You move here when you moved here, we didn't allow chickens. And I understand that there may be, although I'm not concerned, but then maybe it's because I'm older. I'm not the least bit worried about being able to buy a egg next week at the store. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. So I think it's something that, the way I look at it is there's a whole big citizenship here, and people live here for a reason. And I think that if you moved here and you thought we could have chickens, and we couldn't, and for some reason we couldn't, I just, you came here with no chickens, and I think that's the way the city was designed.
I moved from Freeport in 1960. I had 20 pair of pigeons. I couldn't bring them to Lake Jackson.
Well, I don't think we had chickens. We had some back over the levee, because I lived over pigeons. I lived in Velasco, so we might have could. But I don't find.
That's 62 years ago.
Things
Same here.
change.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, and I will say it was 410 signatures in 10 days. And one point I would like to make is, and yes, sometimes you have a very small group of people that respond to whatever the issue is, tattoo parlors or, chickens or whatever the issue is. But look at our voting. Look at this last election, we had 6% turnout. So I don't think that many people, I think when you say I got 410 signatures in 10 days from 2 girls going out to get that information, that is not insignificant.
Well, no, and I'm not playing down the efforts that they made. I'm just looking at a lot bigger picture. I'm thinking about, what about the next subdivision that comes in? And they find out that we allow chickens, and that doesn't sound like a big deal until we build a subdivision like Northwood, and there's a handful of people want to put in chickens. I can see it happening in my old neighborhood. I wouldn't like it. In fact, the people down the road had them for a little bit, and then they got rid of them because they were too much trouble. So, but I'm looking further down the line, and I think that a city, and there's probably not a whole lot of cities that allow this. Maybe there are ones that have gone from rural to urban, but I just think when you look at the city of Lake Jackson, no one lives here because you can have chickens. And and dogs are a nuisance. If you can ask anybody that's talked to me very long, as far as I'm concerned, any dog over 10 pounds ought not be allowed in the city. And my dog happens to weigh 9.5.
Thank you.
all right. Is there any other discussion on this item? Again, this is for a discussion. Okay.
Amy Tasto, 57 Caladium Court. I'm here just because I have to counteract Glenn. I'm for this. I'd probably have a lot that's not going to be big enough for this either. But there's a lot of lots that with setbacks and everything, you can't even fit a shed in your backyard. So to me, that's not much of a deterrent because that's just determined on the lot size. You're going to be able to have something or you're not. Pools, sheds, whatever. Further than that, I know we're not Angleton, but I know there are subdivisions in Angleton that do not allow it because my friend lives in one. So just because the city passes it, subdivisions like Northwood or any of the new developments that come in, their HOAs might decide that they don't want to do this. And that's fine because that's them as neighbors taking that decision on. So even though I wouldn't do it because A, I don't think I can with my work schedule, and B, there's a hawk that lives behind my house, he's my neighbor. It doesn't mean that I think we should limit other people from being able to do that. So, thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Anybody want to meet me at Popeyes after this?
Hi, I'm Lisa Davis, 119 Strawberry, and Modesto knows the size of my backyard. So I probably would not be getting them anyway, but I am a gardener, and I compost a lot. And chicken compost is like gold, you know, to gardeners and those that are really intent on growing their food. Austin, you know, we don't like to model ourselves after Austin very often, but they do have a good chicken policy. They did it so that people would recycle their food. You can give, you know, chickens anything, just about anything in your kitchen that's chicken waste, you know, kitchen waste that you can throw in there to feed them. You can give them, you know, along with food and things like that. It's, you know, to me, it's a way of recycling. Because, you know, if you drive by any of the garbage mounds out there, they're just huge. And so, you know, something to think about in the future, whether you allow chickens or not, is something that, you know, the city really, you know, has done well with the recycling. This is one more way that you consider it a recycling program. So, and the eggs are a great benefit. So thank you.
All right. All right, any other discussion? All right.
Would y'all like to take, we have all of our signature sheets, and then we also have all of the ordinances and calls that were on open record from Lake Jackson and Angleton available just for y'all to go over at your own,
Okay.
on your own time.
We'll go ahead and give it to Sally there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you again for coming to us and talking to us. This is a way we can communicate. This is the way the process works, and we appreciate you bringing it to us, and not just on your own deciding to open up your own chicken coops in the back. You know, and but again, appreciate you coming, and it'll be up for discussion for council to decide what we want to do as far as bringing it back and stuff. Further discussion. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. So this was an education for all of us. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, it was.
So we're going to move on to item 2, and this is also a discussion item. This is follow-up for previous discussions, and this is on the food truck court guidance and requirements, and Megan's going to lead this discussion.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So if you'll flip to, there's a 2-pager in your packet, and it starts by
Hold on,
items
hold
to
on,
consider.
Hold on, sorry. So going back to this, can we,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
No, you're fine.
And this is my education here.
Yep.
Can we actually make a motion to give staff direction just to look into this further?
Well, this was a discussion item, but wasn't listed as a take action.
Well,
We
no,
can
it's
give
direction to staff is not taking action, it's telling staff to work. So you don't, it doesn't need to be an action item. So you can give direction to staff if you want to.
So would we need to vote on that, or no?
No, you wouldn't vote on it, although I would like
An idea?
do it all, and you're the only one who wants to
Well,
go
I
to
guess,
work, Rhonda.
I guess my only thing is that,
Well, how would you vote in this?
is if you go with it, the only reason why I wouldn't do a vote is because if you're gonna go to a vote, I think it's gonna be that you're almost forcing the hand of council deciding if they're for this or not. And I would rather take the time of saying is if you want to ask for staff to take a little more effort, to take some more time, and for us to all look at it more, because this is the first time that we've talked about it. And so to give us an opportunity that we will bring it, that, you know, if you want to bring it back, well, then you can request to bring it back because we haven't voted on it. You can bring it back and put it on the agenda. But we can give direction to staff to see what other information they can pull up on, you know, pull together for it.
And my office is happy to do a Facebook post similar to what we did with the tattoo. We could do a poll, actually, and you'll know there's a margin of error because not everyone's from Lake Jackson, but.
That's the thing. The only problem I have with Facebook is this is not a good indicator because you don't know who it is. You
Only
don't
if,
know
I
where
mean,
they're
if
coming
council
from.
wants us to,
You're getting-
like we
you're
did
getting-
last
You're
time.
getting input from people that are not in our community. And so that's, I mean, you can do it, but I don't gauge it, I don't value, statistically, I wouldn't use the data because it's
We
just-
could do a Google, like a form where they fill out, like what we've had council do, where they have to put their address. If we have options, if that's something council wants us to look into.
Is there information that council would like staff to get to help make a decision one way or the other?
Is Angleton the only sort of southern Brazoria County or even Brazoria County?
No,
Pearland has it.
Pearland, Sweeney, Angleton.
Alvin has them.
So there's more than just Angleton as far as data points on counts for permit request, counts for permits issued, you know, if they're all sort of on board with, I mean, this is a pretty comprehensive ordinance. I don't know if they stole it from Pearland or if they created it
No.
with some, you know, chicken expert ordinance people. I don't know, but, you know, if there's I'd just like maybe some more information about what exists out there and is it all aligned or is it all scattershot all over the
I
place?
guess
But
some data, like we was talking about, is what other cities in our general area
yeah.
that have,
So I've received similar requests for chickens in Lake Jackson for quite some time. And I think maybe perhaps we ought to give city staff to look into it and provide some more data in other city ordinances which may have similar demographics as Lake Jackson.
Yes.
Perhaps Angleton was not a best example because of starting out as a farming community, and bring that to us for consideration.
so it would be who allows it, what are their ordinances, if they permit or not permit, if they do permit, what are their permit fees? And kind of like you'll have to look at how the requirements fall and try to, maybe create a grid of seeing if they do it, this is how they manage it. And also how many permits they actually get if they require permits.
And I'm semi-interested in also, because I always like looking at both problems, is what problems have they had with it? And that was one of the things that made me really look at the Angleton ordinance, because a lot of the problems that I was hearing were actually addressed within this ordinance. So I would like to see again if that crosses over to somewhere like Pearland.
Chief, are you hearing these questions? Okay. So a project will be assigned to the Humane Department. Okay.
Yeah.
Chief, we'll talk tomorrow. I
Yeah,
did have a question also. The one thing that just worries me on the Angleton one is just really the permit fee. The $25 seemed a little light for the time involved for
Agreed.
inspection.
Most of the ones that I looked at, they're $40 to $50 for permit fee, and it's annual permit fee.
It seems like it would at least take an hour of staff time
Yes.
to be out there. Okay. We will
And that's a
get-
lot of information. I assume Your Honor's not suggesting it. We have it in our inboxes tomorrow or anything, but.
We'll
you know,
work on that, and
over the course
we'll
of some
see
time.
if we can, if not the next agenda, the following agenda, we can come back with a report back to council.
Okay. We'll have it back on the agenda in 2 council meetings.
Okay, so that would be for
Second meeting in April.
the young ladies, what date is that?
Second meeting in April.
That's like
Third Monday in April.
18.
18th.
April 18th? Okay, we'll shoot for April 18th.
It's the same night we're bringing back PIDs, so we'll have a full.
Bring a sack lunch.
Yeah, bring your sack lunch.
Coffee.
Okay, all right.
Bring some chicken.
Chick-fil-A. All right, I didn't say that.
That was a good note, Dan Don.
All right, so we're gonna move on now to, let's move on to food trucks.
Okay,
and food
so
courts.
where I was, if you guys could pull up this sheet, we'll start with the items to consider requiring.
I guess we're
So
hungry
everything-
today. All we talking about is food.
Everything that is bolded what staff
page is
did
that?
is we found a couple of ideal ordinances from local cities that talk about food truck courts. Specifically what they allow and don't allow. So in front of you guys, the discussion path that we're gonna take is more, this is what cities typically say in an ordinance. And do you like that? Is that something that you want to be included? Do you want it removed? Do you want to edit times or specifics on these types of things? But this is sort of what staff is recommending in a nutshell. We're happy with any changes you want to make, especially, like I said, to times or specifics, but this is to help guide the conversation. So I'm going to start at the top. We'll work our way down. If you have something in between, just let me know. So the first thing that we would consider requiring is going to be a concept plan. And this is sort of what we talked about as well with independent food trucks. And just a reminder, and for those in the audience, this is specific to food truck courts. So as of right now, based on the last discussion, we are talking about we're talking about more than one food truck would be what is a food truck court, just for discussion purposes. So this plan, it would be a diagrammed plan that includes property lines, adjacent right-of-ways, location of all food trucks, parking areas, surface materials, everything. It would be sent to the code enforcement office, so to David and his people, and it would be approved there. So this would be something essentially just a site plan showing what do they want the food truck court to look like. This is something staff would definitely recommend. And with all of these, if you guys could kind of give me a feeling if it's a yes or a no to move forward in the ordinance. We don't have to discuss every single one of them, but if you don't like it, just let me know.
It's kind of like a check sheet.
Yes, if you don't like it, let me know, or if
Yeah.
not, I'll think you want it.
Okay.
Next, I'm going to move on to a temporary site permit. So this is going to be where they park and prepare food. It is separate from the actual food truck court. So they would apply for a temporary site permit if their food truck is only going to be there on occasion. So, for example, when they move it to go prepare food, load up, those types of things, a lot of cities require that that location has a temporary permit just for the food truck. This one is optional, but
I would put that as, I think we need to discuss that a little bit further personally. So I wouldn't throw it out yet. It might be something we might want to put in it as we go forward, so just.
okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Additional inspections. So if you look at the next page, we automatically will require a certificate of occupancy for each food truck, a food vendor permit, and a health permit after inspection. They'll be inspected for safety by the building official's office and the fire department. So those are inherent regardless because there's a food truck. We could do, though, additional inspections. So this could be for the entire court. It could be by food truck, whatever you feel is necessary. But currently, they only get inspected, I believe, once or twice a year.
So do we do a certificate of occupancy now for a food truck? David? Might as well stand up here, David.
Yes, sir.
We do?
Right now, we do not do a
Okay.
specific certificate of occupancy for a food truck, but we do inspect them before they go into operation here in the city. They are inspected annually, once at City Hall and then once in the field.
When you inspect, what are you looking at?
Well, we're looking to make sure that the vehicle meets all highway safety requirements. The tires run in, the lights work. Is it mobile? We're also looking to make sure that the establishment meets all the food safety handling requirements. Does it have hot and cold food storage capacities, cooking capacities? Is the water waste tank 1.5 times the size of the water supply tank? Does it provide hot water? Does the ventilation system work? Fire extinguishers?
You're
so on
looking
and so forth.
inside of the.
Yes, sir. We do a full inspection of the inside in the kitchen and food preparation areas as we would a brick and mortar restaurant.
So basically, all these items on that second page, all the items 2 through 7, if they meet all those requirements, you'll give them a certificate of occupancy, it sounds like.
Yeah, the certificate of occupancy is congruent with the health license.
Right.
And David, your inspection is separate from the fire marshal's inspection.
The fire marshal does his own inspection also. They look at some of the same items, but they also look at the fire suppression system for the hood, grease capture systems, and so forth.
So this is just if you want more than that once annually inspection to be in the ordinance. We do that. David and his people can go out and inspect as frequently as they're called or they feel is needed, as you're aware, but do you want to put something in the ordinance that requires more? Most cities do.
So, explain to me what would it look like? I understand the food truck inspection component of it. What would the food court inspection component look?
So in this
look
case,
like?
one of the things that we inspect when we go to a brick and mortar establishment is the facilities themselves. Are the restrooms clean? Are they providing the necessary, soap and paper towels and minimum lighting requirements? Does the table seating surfaces, are they clean and sanitary? Are there areas that are going to catch food? Ripped upholstery, things of that nature. We would do something very similar with the food court itself. We would walk the grounds and make sure that we don't have any areas where garbage is collecting, that the restroom facilities in the commissary meet
I mean, we're
minimum
assuming
standards.
that everybody's a different owner. One, you could have a food truck court owner, and you could have 10 separate food
Correct.
truck vendors. Operators.
And we may be there to inspect the food, the mobile vending unit itself, the food truck, or we may be there to inspect the food court, or a combination of the two.
David,
Yes, sir.
if you have a food court, and you have trucks, already said they passed the first inspection, then you go out and they don't pass the second inspection, how many times do they have to have a citation before you can move them, ask them to leave?
Well, much like we would, we talked about this last fall in regards to frequency of inspections and what to do if you have a problem child, and we'll use that term.
Correct.
We would increase the inspections on that unit. If the unit does not pass the inspection, they would not be allowed to operate that day. Council may decide in the ordinance that they, relocate off that site during the times that they are not in operation because of violations. But we work very closely with all of our food vendors, mobile or not, to get them back up and running and be available for inspections even after hours. So we would hope that any food vendor, whether it's brick and mortar or mobile, would be able to make their corrections, give us a call, and we could get them back making money as quickly as possible.
So
we
you
don't
would
we don't have a procedure or a policy in place that would revoke licenses or ban, if you, I wouldn't use the word ban, but revoke licenses, meaning that they couldn't operate inside city limits.
Councilman David's right. We don't revoke a restaurant's license. We may, close them down for a period of time till they correct the problem. And once the problem's corrected, they're open back up.
So basically, you do the same thing with a food truck?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, from our standpoint, we would not treat them any different, other than they are mobile, and we have a grouping of restaurants, but you also have a grouping of restaurants inside the mall food court, so we would not treat them any different.
Right.
And you might feel that our current update to the health inspection policy covers this just fine, if they could get triggered to more inspections. You could feel that covers this portion.
Yep.
Good, okay.
Okay.
So zones are area allowed. So currently you'll see in there, well, not on here. So we do not restrict brick and mortar businesses, how close they can be to residential, how close they can be to other businesses, anything like that. But you could do that for food trucks. You have to decide if that's fair or not. What other cities do is not within 100 feet of any residential properties, not within 100 feet of any existing restaurant or food establishment unless they have written permission of the other property owner. And then, of course, not within 150 feet of a dedicated fire easement or a public street. These are common things. This is a big one that we need feedback on, just because, like I said, with brick and mortars, besides regular easements, we don't do anything.
Also like to look into maybe so many feet away from schools.
Yeah, that can be handled with the zoning classifications and any restrictions you put on as far as where they can be. as an overlay to a zone or just in written ordinance format.
Yeah, and I believe we can also talk about which zones that you would like to allow them in here. The ones that David brought up to the planning board was B1 and B2. But you could consider commercial as well, or any other
Restaurants
areas.
are allowed in all three zones, though.
Yeah.
Correct.
One of the reasons we singled out the B1 and B2 is it had to do with the verbiage of drive-through establishments. Being that these are mobile, we have customers driving up to them, customers going away from them at a more frequent rate than you would a sit-down type establishment. Or the potential for that is there. So I had clued in on the fact that we would probably treat them more like a drive-through establishment than a
Well, it depends on the
sit-down establishment.
Depends on what the design requirements we put on it, because, again, some food courts I've seen do, you pull up, it's a parking lot, and people pull up to the food truck and get their stuff. There's other ones where it's actually it's a court. I mean, you've got, the trucks are sitting there, and people walk into the court area, and they go to the food truck, get their food, and if they're gonna stay, then there's tables there for them, and so forth. So it just depends on what kind of design we would allow going forward. Because you wouldn't need a drive-through, in that example, you wouldn't need a drive-through capability for that. You just have parking requirements.
So in these points on here, are we solely talking about a food truck court?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, are these, sounds like kind of three separate things. We've got special events, like our food truck festival.
And those are exempt.
Okay.
On
and
the
then
second
we've got,
page, yes,
we're
ma'am.
talking about food courts, what that would look like. And then are we excluding, like if we had a food court, then there are no individual food trucks, like a truck could go do an individual agreement with some business?
No, so currently we're just talking about food truck courts.
Courts,
Because
okay.
we wanted to
Two
be
or
able to
more.
bring both ordinances to you at the exact same time.
Okay.
That way, if you allow just the food trucks, we're not, the
Gotcha.
people that have like two, we're not messing with their business. So we want to bring both to you at the same time. But, so for currently, we're just talking about courts. But on the second page, you will see exceptions. Special events typically do have exceptions, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. But we would like any feedback you have, if you want there to be feet requirements away from other businesses, residential, if you have thoughts on zones. There is the zoning map and explanations in your packet, if you would like a refresher on that, but.
Well, again, when I was talking to you about this, was at first I thought that we did have restrictions on how close a business can be to a residential, and you're saying we don't.
We do not.
So the next question I have is that if we do a true food court, which includes no generators and that kind of stuff,
Yes, sir.
my concern is that, how close you are to residential when you start having a generator running and all that kind of stuff. So I still think I personally think that there needs to be some kind of buffer between. I don't know what it is. If it's 100 feet, 15 feet, I don't know. But I think I would personally, if I was living next door to where a food court was going to be, you might hear from people saying that I would like to see some kind of buffer zone.
And we don't disagree. That's why I included that other cities typically do about 100 feet,
Yeah.
whatever
Just
you
like-
feel is necessary.
Again, when we were talking, we said, well, like Dairy Bar. Dairy Bar sits right up against the property line, and they have a drive-through right behind there and stuff. So there isn't any restrictions that we have right now.
Yeah, they're grandfathered. I know several years we changed the B1 ordinance, and we added drive-through restrictions on time and noise, but of course they were there before that. I think that may be the only thing that we
But we didn't
have
do
difference in.
we didn't do buffer. We just had
No,
drive-through operations.
yeah, it was
There
time
isn't.
constraints and.
Dairy
and-
Bar
and
got
color.
an 8-foot board fence behind it too,
Yeah.
that helps.
I think it was the lighting from that drive-through that was
Yeah.
disturbing people, and so we put a restriction on the hours and things.
Yeah.
So there could be some things in the B1 that are probably more restrictive, but
They're not. We looked.
it's not, it's the drive-through, and I think there's a time constraint on there.
Yeah. So are y'all recommending 100-foot, or are you just saying?
That's what's common.
common?
David, do you have a recommendation? I think you had one for planners.
Well, you know, obviously, I've looked at this separately than you, Megan, but currently, the distance separation between other types of nuisances, such as lighted signs, is 60 feet to residential property, to residentially zoned property. And that's not to the building, that's to the actual property line. So, you know, there's a large area in there that definitely needs to be explored and looked at, not just with city council, but the planning commission as well.
All right. Okay.
If you want footage, we're happy to come back with an ordinance that has what staff would recommend, and then you could discuss it more in depth then.
Okay.
But if you want us to go that route,
Yeah.
if you think that there should be a buffer zone.
I think 100 foot's too much.
100 foot's too much, okay?
Personally. Because then you start restricting the property. I mean, how much space they've got for the food court, so.
David, you're saying the signage is 60 feet?
Yeah, we have an ordinance that talks about lighted signs.
Yeah.
Being 60 feet to
Property line to
residentially zoned property.
Okay.
And are we talking just residential, or would you like us to look at other businesses as well?
My only concern is residential.
Okay.
Plus the sign would be just for the whole food court, not individual food trucks, so that should not be a big problem.
Okay. So next, we're gonna go on to number of trucks allowed. Most do not have a limit on the number of trucks allowed. Some do it by square footage, or by acreage, I guess, of a property, but they get very strict, like in Austin and stuff. So this is just if you think that there should be a limit to the number, or if you want us to look at by acreage or anything like that.
I think by acreage, and,
Okay.
you know, how many you can fit, and, you know, have reasonable space. And again, it gets back to the design of the food court. You know, if they're gonna have, each food truck is gonna pull in, and they're gonna have their own little eating area out in front of it, that's one thing. If it's, again, if it's a food truck circle with common area in the middle or whatever, then that, your space requirements will be completely different, so. That's just my knowledge of food courts.
So on that as well, I mean.
Yes, ma'am.
That's probably gonna normally be pretty self-limiting, because whoever wants to purchase to build a food court, you know, but I mean, say we had somebody that wanted to do a 10-acre food court, I don't know where they would do that at, but, I mean, do we want to allow something like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want to get, there's going to be a lot of other factors that limit it. Of course, the size of the lot, drainage, parking requirements. There's going to be a lot of other provisions
much
that
money do
all
they
of a
wanna
sudden
put
start
into it?
closing in how many food trucks
Right.
you can get on the site.
Right.
In most commercial properties, there's also a landscaping minimum requirement, so these are all things which would have to be looked at and reviewed during the site review process.
Okay, there is a setback if you're close to residential. It has to do with how tall your building is. I didn't write this. It's, it can't be located near to single-family residential than a distance equal to 1.5 times the height of the exterior walls. Yeah, so there's that.
So,
I don't know what that means.
so 20 feet.
So if you have a very short food truck, you can get closer.
You'll be fine, yes.
Yeah.
Hot dog cart.
You're talking about 15 or 20 feet.
Walk up only.
1.5 times the side height of a truck. Okay, well, I mean, it's something.
Okay, next is what we talked about with individual food trucks as well, if they are required to move. Most of them say that they do need to remain fully mobile. However, if there is a commissary provided on site, they do not require them to move, because that means they can get rid of their matter, they can prepare their food, those types of things actually on site. But most do require them to move to their designated commissary if it's off-site every 24 hours. You'll see that number 7, should you think that they should be required to move, we would recommend a food truck log of some sort, which is what we discussed for individual food trucks as well, just where they have to keep a pen and paper of every 24 hours that they move and where they're taking it to.
And Megan, David, for my education, can you describe what a commissary looks like to us?
So a commissary is a brick and mortar a facility where the food truck has an agreement with that provider. It is treated like a food establishment, subject to inspections, subject to all requirements of TFR. Whether or not it's an operating kitchen really isn't of concern in this case, because this is just the area where that truck goes, onboards potable water and edible food products, other supplies and whatnot, and then offloads their waste. Their gray water, grease water.
So it's mostly for waste, because I guess, I mean, I've never operated a food truck. I mean, I would think that most of food preparation stuff can happen inside the food truck.
Yeah, the food preparation itself. However, you can't just go in and load your food truck with food from unknown sources. As an example, I can't just go to my kitchen refrigerator, open it up and say, this is what I'm cooking today. I have to get those from a commercial establishment. Some people get them directly from the grocery store, which is a suitable area. Some people get them from a commissary or from a wholesaler. Also for potable water, they have to get that from an approved source. It has to be a municipal source, can't be a well, and they have to make sure that it's unloaded with specific cautions. The hose can't just be laid on the ground. They have a specific hose that's food grade, and it's kept safe and sanitary for that purpose. And these facilities have those connections. They have everything necessary to make sure they're in the food truck itself is in compliance with TFR.
What David said.
Quick, my quick response to your question is that I wouldn't, if the food court has all the capabilities of unloading, offloading waste and new stuff,
Yes, sir.
then I wouldn't have to require them to move, but they have to still be capable of moving.
Okay. So
like
how this
someone
is
told-
written is okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Is
That's
that,
my opinion.
and if they are going off-site, do we like the idea of some sort of a log, similar to what
Right.
you discussed with the individual trucks? Okay. I'm getting head nods. Perfect.
Are we saying that it's required or it's an option?
If they can't do everything on-site, there's not a commissary, then they have to move
The
every
truck has
24
to
hours.
move every 24
Yes.
hours.
And they have to keep a
And a
log of
log.
that.
Okay.
Okay,
David?
real quick, yep.
I just had a question
Sure.
about the disposal of
Yeah.
water and whatnot. What we're trying to do, my name's Dylan Garcia, I'm manager of Backyard Patio, but also on Winnie's Lounge along with my dad and my brother. And the food truck that we're gonna put there, so if you're saying it does not require, if I put a grease trap in there, basically is what I'm trying to say, in line, that I wouldn't have to move to go dispose of my water.
Correct.
Right.
Okay,
You
so
can-
even
can
though
do
I have
everything
to,
on
but I would have to stay mobile.
But you have to still be declared, you got to be the capability of being mobile.
Okay.
Unless it's your kitchen, like with some of the
Like
businesses.
back-
Like
Backyard,
backyard, for example.
or like,
We just took the tires off it and put
Yeah,
it in line.
backyard and
Grease trap.
like the fill station, those are, yeah,
Okay,
those are your kitchens, yeah.
thank you.
It's not a food truck.
So the only caveat when we're talking about Winnie's, which is this gentleman's venture, is that's not a licensed food establishment. Winnie's does not have a kitchen in it, so they would have to have a commissary. That commissary could be Backyard Patio. That commissary could be the lounge. It could be another established food, another food establishment. But Winnie's itself is not licensed as a food establishment.
But he could.
He could.
He could, however, at that point, he would be looking at doing something similar to what they did at Backyard Patio, making that kitchen a permanent installation, not a mobile installation. There's also, another topic for conversation, and I might get backlash for saying this. He might lose his grandfathering
Right.
as a bar.
Okay.
Exactly. Because he's turning into a restaurant now.
It come up here, I'm sorry.
My name is Lee Garcia, owner of Winnie's Water Hole, general manager. The grandfathering issue would not be changed. We're not changing our alcohol license, and we're not going from red to blue. We're just serving food.
So
the grandfathering would not be.
No, the grandfathering isn't your license. The grandfathering is our zoning code that doesn't allow Winnie's there, and the Winnie's is, you're not allowed to expand your use. You're not allowed to change your use. If you
That's
add
on
a
the building
permanent
itself,
kitchen,
right?
you're changing it.
Is that on the building itself? We're not adding to the building, we're adding a food truck outside.
To the building or to the
But
business?
they're
Right.
just
This
talking
is-
about the commissary and the kitchen and
Yeah.
what to do about it, because you're not a licensed food establishment. This is just more
We can-
complicated than what city council needs to discuss right now.
We can take it offline between
Right,
staff and
right.
David. and stuff like that.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep moving on. Number 8, hours of operation. Most of them do have hours of operation. We talked about this with individual food trucks as well, just to see what the usual would be for our brick and mortar stores, and then we were gonna try and make that relevant
Right.
for them as well. We could do the same thing here. 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. is what I found with a lot of cities. You can restrict that, or you can tell us to do what we were looking at doing with the individual food trucks and just replicate it here. We don't have that data right now, but whatever the hours we found for those, we could replicate that here, unless you have specifics.
These hours, the only one I would question on that would be the morning one, because you got a lot of these breakfast taco
Yes.
truck.
Or coffee, or
coffee
yes.
type places. I mean, I'm at work by 7 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just.
I'm
if we could-
retired and I'm not.
Had to throw that.
Needled it.
Just if it would be
But I
possible
understand.
for
I
us
mean,
to
some,
expand
yeah,
that a little bit.
yeah, expand on it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I can do that, okay. The next thing is noise, similar to hours of operation. Most food truck courts have some sort of ambiance going on, so you're talking either like little mini concerts or just noise coming through speakers above. It's if you want to regulate that, especially because they could be close to residential or other businesses.
Could you also have them before?
Have
You got a later time, but
For
do we
noise.
want a bunch of noise at 5:30 in the morning? Or?
We can definitely do that.
Point.
What do we have for downtown? Do we have any restrictions?
Nothing for downtown. Again, this is probably, you probably picked this up from the B1 ordinance.
No, this is from another city.
So one of the things about downtown, and we have gotten noise complaints from the neighborhoods on the other side of Oyster Creek Drive, but the distance between the actual restaurant generating the noise and those residential houses is quite lengthy. It's not 60 feet, 100 feet, or anything of that nature. But I would imagine that a lot of food truck courts would want to have some sort of music playing, or on occasion live music.
I'm back to what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I would,
Early morning,
Yes, sir.
think about too.
Okay.
I don't want to be woke up by a jukebox.
So then-
one of the things I'm seeing is that there is a little bit of difference on B1 when it's right next to a neighborhood versus like B2 or C2. So for like downtown, there's no restriction. But if you had a food truck court downtown in B2, you'd have this food truck court that would have, you got to stop your noise at 11, but several restaurants could keep on going. So I understand, the conversation, but maybe it's in
It has to-
maybe it's in the zone and
Yeah.
not so much in the guideline.
May have additional, other than the zone, for depending on where they are.
But I do live on the other side of Oyster Creek, and if I'm inside the house, I don't hear the noise. If I go sit out in the backyard on the patio, I can hear it. It's not a
So what
problem.
happens in a food court scenario? So you've got say we have a really nice food court and it's got, benches and the green space and all that sort of stuff. And they have speakers. I mean, is every individual food truck in that food court gonna be playing something?
You mean
different?
like if we had
If you
an
had
ice cream
five
truck
different-
convention and
Yes,
we're
if
all,
you have 5 different trucks.
That would be
everybody
regulated by
do-
the property owner.
Right.
Okay.
But this is just for the entire food truck court. Do you want it to have hours, is what we're recommending.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
And,
once again, on 11078, if you're within 60 feet, you are not allowed to have external amplified sound. If you're within 60
So-
feet of a private residence.
Okay, so 60 foot's already the number.
Yeah,
for the
so it's already
zoning.
regulated by another ordinance.
yeah.
But do you want hours, is what I'm asking?
Yes.
A limit on the morning.
Because theoretically, they will be 60 feet away based on what we got from the last one. And so do you want hours for when?
So why can't we have the same hours as the brick and mortar?
I don't know if we have.
They're not,
is
they're
no
not
hours.
regulated. So Panera might open up at 5:30, but Chili's didn't open up till 10. So they're just not regulated.
It's just if you want us to explore it. If so, staff can look into it. Yes.
You
Any
can
head
see if
nods?
there's other
Okay,
examples.
so,
Okay.
Okay.
So 60 would be a minimum.
so 5 a.m. to midnight is
Not 5 a.m.
5 a.m. to midnight is when the brick and mortars, if they're close to residential. And that's a big, long span.
Okay.
Signage.
Moving on, signage. So this would essentially be, there would be no limit to the amount that's within the food court, and then everything else would fall to our sign ordinance, essentially.
So this attached is pretty vague, so you don't want, if it's on the truck itself, that's fine, but you don't want them adding on to say, well, it's attached now to my food truck and extends out, and we don't wanna be careful how, specify what you mean by attached. Attached to the truck is okay, but maybe not attached in addition to the truck.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying? I mean, you don't want it on top of the truck or next to the truck, but just attached. I'm
Okay.
not sure how council feels about that, but just something I noticed.
So the current sign ordinance, we do not police, signage internal to the property. We allow a sign of size based on the speed of the road. So, for example, any fast food restaurant, if it's on a roadway, we'll allow various heights and stuff based on the speed limit of the sign. Internally, though, they can have all the signage you want.
Right.
So McDonald's can have tons of signage on their property. We don't restrict that. We only restrict that one, pole or monument sign.
Then
Yeah.
we should not even attach that to the food truck then, I mean.
Yeah, you don't really need to have the attached food truck. That's managed by the property owner on
Right.
how they want to do.
So I can
internally.
remove signage
Yeah.
if you guys would like that, and we can just refer back to our signage
But,
ordinance.
yeah, the only signage that you would have that we really want to have control over is the one that they can have to say this is a food court,
Okay.
Joe's Food Court.
The reason we include that is food trucks typically might have an A-frame sign or some sort of other billboard they might put out closer to the road to advertise what they're selling. Look at the one on Forest Oak and Plantation as an example.
And so
We
the-
don't currently regulate that because it's on the property,
Right.
but
But the current, we'd
We can just refer back.
under current ordinance, we would prohibit it to some degree.
So unless you want to allow an exception.
No.
Okay, moving on. So parking, what is typical is that there's one off-street parking space for each table provided. Then you get into, so I've seen some where it's per food truck, which I think is what staff would recommend as well. So we could do by table, by food truck. It's just, do you want to have a parking requirement? Because restaurants do have a parking requirement, so we would recommend it for food truck courts, but.
Yes.
I think if you're really going after a food court, you need to have parking. You have to have a parking requirement.
Yes. So are you guys comfortable with by a food truck or by seating some, however staff can sort of word that? Okay,
Food truck, I think. That'll be easier for you just to take a look and get.
by truck. And are you comfortable with the one per food truck? That is what's common, and I think that's what David and I are found the most, but, or do you want to make it more? We can come back with one and we can discuss it later if you want. Okay,
Yeah, see what you can find out.
got head nods?
To me,
Okay.
one is too few.
Yeah, because so if you have 5 food trucks, you would only have to have 5 parking spots.
Required, they'd
Yeah,
probably
that's
have
not
more,
enough.
but, okay. Restrooms, we would recommend permanent restrooms having to be on site, similar to what you require with an individual food
Right.
truck, that they have access for employees. We would recommend these as public restrooms, though, not just for employees, since that's what we require for a business, a restaurant as well.
Yeah, and they can't be portable or anything like it.
Correct, that's what we found is common. You can allow them to be portable if you feel like that, but we would recommend permanent.
Permanent.
Okay, wonderful. Then there's utility services. I know that the common thing is we don't like the idea of generators. So this is saying that we would require hookups for electricity for each of the food trucks, keep the noise down,
Right.
and that they're not allowed to have a generator unless it's for emergency circumstances.
Definitely put that in there, hurricane season.
Yes. It's how we'll feed everyone.
Yeah, the OC needs tacos.
Yep.
Go there. That's right.
Okay, perfect. So then if you want to go to the next page, that was everything I had for what we should talk about. The next page, like I said, is just what would be automatically required. The only thing that you might question is the exceptions. These are just something that I found was common with a lot of them. So it's talking about at special events they would be allowed. If it's something like a farmer's market or they've rented a space like that, it would be allowed. And then if it's on public property, so for like our events, like Festival of Lights.
That's good.
Comfortable with that? Okay. So that is all I had. Is there anything else you would like staff to look into or anything before we bring an ordinance to you?
I think that covered.
Y'all might have covered this and I missed it.
Wake up.
Is there anywhere we talk about, do they have to be under their own power, or are we talking about trailers too? Because I see food truck, but not everybody does it with a truck that can drive itself these days.
The word food truck in this case is being used to incorporate trailers, carts even, anything that would be licensed for food preparation and serving.
Sherry would define that for you.
Yeah,
Mobile.
we're using the word truck as a synonymous catch-all in this case.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with that? Okay.
Yes, no, I definitely am. I just wanted to make sure that
We're not
that
leaving
was
them out.
covered.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
because I know
Yeah, the
people
ordinance
that,
would include a definition
do it that
which
way.
would have all those various items in there, but only reference one thing in the ordinance itself.
Yep, I got you.
Did you get every question answered that you needed?
I believe so.
Zoning?
I'm going to bring forth B1 and B2, and then we'll see what council thinks.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, good to go. All right, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to item 3, it's to discuss requirements for massage parlors should have before opening such as special use permit. This is something that I asked to put on the agenda. This is something that I've been working with Refuge for Women and a few other groups to help address the issues that we do have in our community today of human trafficking and solicitation. And as we talk about this, a lot of this, sadly, a lot of these activities are in, have been reportedly occur in massage parlors that aren't properly regulated, and that they're an avenue for this type of operation to happen in communities. The hope here is that we'll have the conversation, but at the end of the day, I would like for council to agree that we could go forward with working with not only not by ourselves, but along with all the other cities in southern Brazoria County that currently do not have an ordinance addressing this issue, to work with them along with the county and even with the state to come up with the appropriate ordinances to help move these operations out of the city and make sure that they never come back. And I guess, don't believe that it's not here. It is here. And we may see, I don't know if y'all are going to show any data or not, but I've seen data that shows we have 4 establishments in Lake Jackson that fall under, have some activities that are not what we want in our city. But if y'all want to talk about it a little bit. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Curtis Swisher, 1902 Sugar Mill Lane. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this important issue. We're part of a national organization, Refuge for Women. We're Refuge for Women Texas Gulf Coast. And we provide residential healing and recovery for women who have escaped sex trafficking. We were alerted by Joe Madison of Demand Disruption, an anti-trafficking organization in Houston, that we have illicit massage businesses operating in our city. So I then conducted my own online research that convinced me that there are 4, indeed, operating in our city that offer sex for sale. I won't name these businesses publicly so as not to endanger the trafficking victims who are working there, and not to compromise any investigation that might take place. However, I have turned over my research to the mayor as he indicated. Not only do illicit massage businesses constitute organized criminal activity, but they harm the trafficking victims who are working there. They are a public health hazard because of the potential spread of sexually transmitted diseases in our community. And finally, they taint the reputation of legitimate massage businesses who are doing things the right way. Demand Disruption and Joe Madison already partnered with Pearland and Manville to enact ordinances, and 8 other cities in Montgomery and Fort Bend County. Conditional use permit ordinances are what we're talking about to prevent illicit massage businesses in their city. And officials in these cities are then going the next step to work with law enforcement and landlords to shut down the existing businesses that would not be covered under the ordinance because of the grandfather issue. So it's a two-pronged approach. This kind of special or conditional use permit ordinance will not cost the city or its taxpayers any additional funds because these businesses are already being inspected, but it will provide a checklist with the ordinance language for the inspector as they're doing their inspection. These businesses that are illegitimate have certain characteristics that the ordinance would cover. So in summary, a conditional use permit ordinance to regulate massage businesses will prevent new organized criminal prostitution from embedding itself in our community. It will protect trafficking victims and legitimate massage businesses, and it will not cost the city or its taxpayers additional funds to enforce. We ask you to take swift action to make Lake Jackson off limits to illicit massage businesses. And as a prominent city in southern Brazoria County, Lake Jackson has the opportunity to lead the way on this issue. And I know it's the mayor's vision that all the cities, as he has articulated in our area, work together so that a massage business that gets shut down in Lake Jackson does not move a few blocks away or a few miles away into one of our neighboring communities. And at Refuge for Women, you can see some of us in the audience. We stand ready to assist you in any way that you need during this process. Thank you.
Thank you for what y'all are doing, very much, thank you.
So I will say also to council, so I spent quite a bit of time working at Memorial Hermann Southeast, and there weren't enough SANE nurses, which sexual assault nurses. So they in turn came and they trained the ER nurses to be able to do the sexual assault. And so we got a lot of data and dealt with quite a few. I mean, we've had people dumped off at the front door of the ER before at Southeast. Because Houston is actually one of the main trafficking routes in Texas, just because of the ease of the freeways and the proximity to Mexico. So no doubt it's here.
Yes.
So thank you for what you do.
Yeah, and if you remember back a few years ago, we've had the sex trafficking that hit the teenage world in our communities. And so there was a individual that was trafficking teenagers into hotels here in Lake Jackson. And that individual's gone away. But again, it's it's something that you wish you don't have in your community. And it's sad to say that we do, at least there's indications that we do. If you haven't heard of the dark web, there's the dark web out there, and that's where, where the research is done to go find out where these locations are, and to see what is published out there, it just sickens your soul, because you see that these people talk about these other individuals as property, as things of use, and they rate them, and all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be some easy fixes that we can go do with an ordinance, and then we've got through the examples that we've gotten from Demand Disruption Group and stuff. We've got a template that we can start with and decide of those things that are bullet points of what we can go do relatively easily in an ordinance. There's also, they tried to get this passed through the state legislature, and it went through the House and the Senate. It sped through the two houses, but at the last minute, the governor vetoed it. And so it's, I don't know why he vetoed it, but it was vetoed. And so they're going to bring it back again, the next legislature, but we need to act now. to protect, it's not just women, it's women, men, and children that are being talked about and sold out on the dark web. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I'm Melinda Hearns. I live at 234 Sleepy Hollow in Lake Jackson. I've been a massage therapist for 25 years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's out there. I have worked hard, gone to a lot of school, a lot of training, to build my practice up legitimately. I have, now, some of the rules have been changed, thank God. When I first started, you didn't have papers for them to sign in, or laws. That's helped. But these establishments don't have, they don't go by the rules, the codes. I have lost an employee because of this. I've had a gentleman come to my, call my office. I was not there. It was my receptionist, and she was fairly new, and she called me and told me that there was this gentleman who wanted to know if we had Asian therapists there. And she said no, and he wanted to know, well, what kind did we have? What color were they? And and she was, you know, she just answered him. We have female massage therapists. And he said he was at the mall and he was just going to come over and check out our girls. That scared her. So she calls me, and I'm in the middle of Target, and told me this. I left my basket, got in my car, and sat on the car with her. She locked the front door, locked herself in the vault. This girl was scared to death. It's scary. And when I got there, I went to the back door, and I went toward the locked door, which they enter in, and he wasn't there. So I walked down the walkway, and he was fixing to get into his car. And he saw me. So he comes back. And I had him come into the office, and I sat him down, and I said, I don't know what you want, but we're a legitimate massage therapy establishment, and that if he was looking for anything else, he was up barking at the wrong tree. He him-hawed around, and then he was on the phone for a long time. And I said, you know, I'll give you a massage. I will. I was ready to go in there and get my bat and beat him, but I didn't. I have one in my room. I was angry. I was.
Yeah.
And I was humiliated, and I felt horrible for all these people who are solicited and
The victims.
victims. So while he went in my room, I went out to his car, and I took a picture of it. And I took a picture of his license plate. And then I came back in, and I gave him his massage. And while I was giving him his massage, he was telling me how he could make my life wonderful by taking me here and doing this and doing that. I held my cool, and I told him I was quite happy here. God wants me here, and this is where I'm going to be. And when we were done, he was paying, which I'm sure he didn't really intend on doing that when he got there, but I pretended I was on my phone, and I took pictures of him. And then I brought him over here to the police department and let them see him. But the license plate on his car said dealer. And he was just showing the world, he's a dealer. I was humiliated and mad, and what he does for our reputation of us hardworking people is degrading. And all these other girls that are being human trafficking, we now have to take human trafficking courses. We have to be fingerprinted. I don't know if they all are. they get by with it because they call it reflexology, and reflexology doesn't have to have license. But once they get in, and I've heard stories after story from our clients, some of our clients that have gone to get a massage and it's imposed on them without even asking for it, and then they're demanding money. It's got to be stopped. And also it brings in other things. It brings in. Give me a minute. I get nervous and my teeth start sticking to my mouth. It brings in crime. A lot of it. And it threatens our reputation. And people, like I say, come to our business looking for a service like that. It's taxes. They want cash and cash only. I pay my taxes. I pay my payroll reports and taxes on the building that I own or buying. It's organized crime.
I don't know you, but I will tell you, you have an excellent reputation in our community.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't name it Heaven Sent for
I've heard
nothing.
your name before.
Thank you.
It's great to have a business owner come in and talk to us about this, because that brings a lot of weight behind what we're trying to do here. And like you said, it's going to help businesses, the real businesses like yours, cleanse our community of this area, because it impacts you too.
I will help you. I will go undercover with my badge.
Well, at our forum that we had several weeks ago, I had several ladies come up to me, and they were talking about some of these establishments, and they have been sitting out there watching who comes and goes. And but again, you guys, folks, if you on council, if you look at your package, you see the bullet points, and those are things that you can put into just example of things you can put into an ordinance. And one of the things that's like, for example, there's one of these questionable operations here, businesses that are here that they have their license has expired for over a year, and we can't do anything about it because we can't shut them down because they don't have a license. That's a state deal. So the state would have to come out, that org would have to come out and do that. But if in our ordinance we put in there that you have to have a current license to operate, as a condition.
An establishment license.
Establishment
is what it's
license.
called.
Because we could shut them down immediately.
That's
if they don't
right.
have it.
If they have, if somebody's in there, like working alone they don't have to have an establishment license. If they have more than one or, more therapists.
Therapists, they
in
have to
there.
have establishments.
Exactly. And also, if they do not have, like the massage therapy rules 20, and I have it in my form for them to fill out, they see this. And if you don't, they should not be in business. You go in there and ask for their form to fill out. 25, it's therapy rules, 25 Texas Administration Code, Chapter 141. There should be no blank spaces or, you should do them all. And it says if you experience pain or discomfort in the sessions, you should immediately inform the therapist. And you should say this, they should say this to you. If I go too deep, you got to tell me, so I can back off. And then the practice requires your body to be covered, draped at all times during the session, except for the areas being massaged. Please do not remove the draping without the therapist's agreement or in any illicit or sexual suggestions, remarks, or advance made by the client, including removal of drape, will result in immediate termination. And they have to, do all that. And I saw right here, it said, without the, without the therapist's agreement, with the draping being removed. That's,
Yeah.
you keep them covered.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
The part about if the therapist feels uncomfortable about anything, they have a right to terminate the session immediately.
Right.
If the customer feels uncomfortable at any point, they have the right to terminate immediately.
Also, it says, you have to have this on your form. It's the state laws. And it says, should you have, so the person signing in needs to know this too. Should you have any complaints regarding services received? It says, please advise us accordingly so that we can take correction action to ensure you receive the best service possible. You may also contact the State Department of Health Services, and it has her phone number on there. I wish some of these people that have told me stories that they've gotten their little freebie.
Unwanted things, yeah.
Yeah, to know this number too.
Okay, well, thank you again, and,
But it's degrading.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, was mentioned is Joe Madison, who runs this operation, that he's willing to, he would like to work with us with going forward on this, and he'll come in and he can help educate us, and then he can also, through their operations, they can help train our staff, like our fire marshal and code enforcement, for things to look for and so forth. So I think what I would like for is, if council's okay, is if we continue to move forward with this and ask Joe to come in, and we can do, if y'all want to do a workshop with Joe, or we can work with, Joe can work with staff, and we can start trying to work through some of this and bring at the very least, bring back an ordinance as soon as possible for us to get that done, and then come up with a strategy on how to do our education to our fire marshals and our code enforcement folks. Because they're gonna be the people that are gonna be walking into these establishments and doing, fire marshal goes in at least once a year, and he'll be able to take a look and see if they've, built walls that aren't supposed to be there and all those type of things. And so, that's what I'm asking from you folks.
Let's move
If y'all
forward.
okay with that.
Sounds
Move
good.
forward.
Move
Sounds
forward.
good.
Okay. All right, thanks. All right.
Thank y'all.
We're going to move forward with item 4, is discuss and consider the 2022 Consumer Price Index adjustment to municipal telecommunications right-of-way access line rates. Modesta.
Each year, the state or the PUC asks us if we want to disapprove the light increase rates. It increases by the CPI. If we take no action, it'll increase, I believe this year it's 2.5%. But my question was, first, did you want to set a rate that's lower? The rate is charged for the telecommunication companies to be in the right-of-way.
So why would we agree with the rate decrease?
Ever.
Ever? Other than that it eventually gets passed along to the customer.
It does. It gets passed along. The customer sees it as, even though we consider it a cost of doing business,
Right.
the utility companies put it as a separate line item to the customer, and so that's who will see it. But what's happened over, I don't remember looking at the data. Milford's brought up there. You can see over time. Our franchise revenue has declined, really, because what they've have done is they've got exempted a lot of revenue out of the system. So they would call it, I guess, double billing on some items. So the revenue's actually gone down for us. I would recommend the increase, but I still wanted to bring it to council.
But I doubt they've passed that savings along to the customer.
No, they would not.
No.
No.
No. They've just exempted what can be taxed as revenue through the right-of-way. We consider it, again, it's a rental fee for using the right-of-way.
Right.
So I don't need action from you to go ahead and for the PUC to activate the 2.5, but, if you did not want to activate it, then, you would have to take action.
Okay.
Okay?
I think you
I hear
got your
that.
answer.
I have my
Got
answer.
nods.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Discuss the animal control facility design. Megan was gonna present this, but she's not going to now. Well, Milford's gonna present it. No, I'm joking. This is, this is Megan's deal. She's really in, we've got a great person champion this, so it's good.
Thank you. Yes, so Thorne came back, Thorne Architects, if you remember, Lindsay Thorne, he came and met with y'all. They have done an amazing job with this. Staff, especially the selection committee that is myself, the police chief and the assistant police chief. We're all very excited about this and think that they just did a great job. They made all the changes that we wanted based on, if you remember, this was modeled after Atascosa counties. So we took their concept and essentially made it fit what we need. And PD even spoke with our current lead humane officer and then some of the other officers, just from an operational standpoint, make sure they're comfortable with it as well. So page 1 is just so you can remind you where this is going to be. I think that page 2, though, is a little bit better because you can see where it's going to be relative to the SPCA building, the current one. And behind this is actually our mulch site. And so that stops how far back we can go because you can't build where that is. So that's sort of restricted where we can go. But around that black border is what we're going to call the property for this project.
Is that 5 acres?
Oh, you know,
About how many acres?
I am not sure, sir.
Okay.
I'm not sure at all. I don't want to tell you wrong.
No problem.
I can get back with you on that though, but
Just curious.
it's in there somewhere. Methelson's not here, but the next page is just a brief aerial view rendering. We have a little bit better renderings throughout, but this is so you can see from the top down. They did work within our current ordinances for things like parking, the dumpsters, all of that. Where you see the fence on your right, there's also one on the left, and so you'll see another picture later on. That is going to be restricted to employees only. It also, there's fences there because in case an animal were to get out of the facility, they would be stuck within that fenced area.
And that's offices up top.
Yes, okay, so I will move on. I know this is exciting. So you asked me about square footage. If you go to the next page, this talks about square footage for the entire building. So the total is going to be 13,000 square feet. I don't know how many acres, so I'm sorry about that, but I can look into it. But this talks based on the floors and everything. If you go to the next 2 pages, though, this shows a better layout. The first one is the first floor. And so it shows you, what you'll see is that front portion where you see main entry, and then you'll see the large dog holding area. That whole section, let me show you with a pointer. So this right here, these 2 portions are completely separate. So the reason that they do that is because it exempts us from things like sprinklers, certain codes. Those are basically 2 separate buildings blocked by like a fire door. So also the reason we do it is to keep the cats and the dogs comfortable and to keep them separate from the office spaces, which keeps it comfortable for our employees and patrons that may come in. So this lobby area, when you, citizens or staff will park up here. So there is some staff parking right here. When you come in, it's going to be very bright and open. If you remember our renderings, the design concept drawings, this will be open. This is really the only area that the public will see unless they want to go look at cats or they want to go look at dogs. So they can go into a nice clean environment. And then when you go over here, this is, ooh.
Your pointer died.
Yeah, my pointer died. When you go over to the right of there, you'll see the offices and the break rooms. Thank you. Yes, this is for staff only. So no citizens, no public really will go back there unless they want like a tour or something. So that is intended for them. There's showers and everything. Anything that they might need while they're there is built in on that side of the building. And then over here is where we keep all cats. And again, if you remember, it's to keep it separate so that the cats don't hear or see the dogs. And it limits stress on both animals. They have a lot of reasons for doing that, but they found that this is the best setup for the 2. So this will be the food prep and laundry area. That's the only time that dog and cat stuff will intermingle is when we're doing laundry. but the food for dogs is gonna be prepared down here. So, like I said, this is the dog area. There are heavy doors here. When you're in the lobby, you'll probably barely hear dogs at all. In Out of Scotia, you almost can't hear them, so unless the door's open, which it'll be shut most of the time. So then this is the dog holding area. Where you'll see these right here, those are all essentially, if you think of like an airplane hangar, they open large. We'll probably get some sort of netting because we have mosquitoes here that they don't have in Out of Scotia County. But they will open. We'll also have large fans throughout on the ceiling, so it's going to keep the air circulating. The mayor and I believe some other council members have been to Out of Scotia in the past. It can be 100 degrees outside up there near San Antonio, and in that facility, it's very comfortable. So even though there's not air conditioning and we cut back on a lot of costs, that way the dogs and any public that's out there, it felt pretty breezy. So it was hot, but comfortable for everyone.
How many
So
dogs for that hole?
it can hold over 100 because the way that they build it is that you can stack the kennels if you ever need to and still clean them and everything. We would probably only use one level just to see, especially for the first year, what kind of volume we have for cats and dogs. But we believe we can get away with just the one level for now. But we have the potential to build up 2, even 3 if we ever needed to for some reason. I don't think we would in the near future, but
I mean, sometimes they pick up roosters and
Chickens.
pigs and
we thought about this.
chickens and guinea pigs and
Are
rabbits.
you ready for me?
Yes,
Watch
I'm
this.
ready.
So that was brought up. You'll see down here a nice pen, and this is outside. So, like I said, staff will pull in through here. They're the only people that can get in through this gate. They can pull around. There is a pen. So should we have
snakes,
anything that we
spiders,
do not
there were
mix with the
spiders
other animals,
once.
a horse or something, it can go in the pen. Also,
It's big enough for a horse?
It's very large, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There was
And it's separate, so the pen is completely separate from where
But now you can't send your.
You cannot
horse.
bring
You can't
said I would've been
take
mine.
your horse over there.
it is very separate. So if you see right here where these lines are, it's a covered canopy, but this is where the dog runs will be essentially. So that's where they'll take the animals outside and everything. The pen and that pen will be used if there's nothing out there for quarantine dogs to go outside so that they don't intermingle with the general population dogs. So this is the quarantine area. This is the dog eval. So essentially when an animal comes in, cats will be brought in here, dogs are brought in down here. They go in, and like I said, they never intermingle, the two don't. So they go in here and then they're put in wherever they will go, or if they're a dog quarantine, so this is for like a criminal case that we might have, they'll go in that section, or it's dogs that are just quarantined for rabies or whatever else they may be quarantined for. So that is why those two are kept separate. We do have cat quarantine as well. And sometimes cats just have to go through a quarantine period once they come in, especially if they're a stray or something. So
Yeah, they bring a lot of illnesses.
yeah, there's a lot more cat kennels in the quarantine area than there are dog kennels. But yeah, so this is very similar, like I said, to the design of Out of Scotia. They have in their county about the same population size as we have in our city. So we believe that the way they designed it, especially with us making modifications based on what they said they would change, what our architect said he would change, and then just what staff felt like we should change, we feel like this is going to work for us, definitely for the foreseeable future.
The covered area over here, is that gonna be a hose down area too? Because I remember they would bathe the dogs before they brought
Yes.
them into the kennel.
And if you see here, there's some kennels out here as well.
Okay.
So what they do is it's a wet area, as is this dog eval area.
Right.
All animals will be essentially treated out there, so they'll be hosed down for fleas, ticks, that kind of stuff, and then they'll sit out there until that can happen. So there are kennels outdoors. Our people will not leave them outside for very long because it gets so hot here and just humid. But it's set up so that they're basically processed through, very similar to like a jail almost. Like,
right.
Yes.
We don't wanna put a sick dog in with the other.
Correct. Yeah. So that is what we have. Then you can go on to the second level.
Do you have any veterinary offices in here? It's for veterinary.
So you'll see we have 2 areas. You'll see a lab right here.
Okay.
We will not, so at this point, we have not officially decided on operational policies. We're probably going to form some sort of a committee or board for that. They will be in charge and then everything will be recommended to you. So I can't say for sure what our policy will be on vet work, but our current thought is that we're gonna copy sort of what Out of Scotia does, And our animal control officers will also be vet tech certified, so that all of them can do things like the shots, if we have to do euthanasia, those are the type of things they can cover. The board is gonna have to determine at what point, because they will not be vets, and we will not have a vet on staff most likely unless council feels differently, which is expensive. But at what point do they go to a vet is what will be part of the policy. So when does that escalate? If our AACOs cannot handle it with their vet tech license, at what point do we send them to a vet? That's a different conversation, but yes, we do have a lab, and it's a small room, but it's a table and a sink and everything that you would need in a typical lab, so we don't anticipate using it very often unless we're doing shots.
Thank you.
Which are required by the state, so we will only do what is required by the state unless council or the board tells us
Have it there in
otherwise.
case you need it.
Yes, sir. Okay, so on the second level, there will be a conference room in Atascosa. They had it on the main level. We did not feel like that was necessary because it's not utilized that often, but it's nice to have the space, especially for meetings. There is a mechanical room which will have electricity and all of that. The storage is most likely going to be utilized as the IT room, where they'll keep all their servers and everything. And then you'll see there's going to be a door, a secure door placed right here, in case PD ever wants to use this for something, another department function. So as you know, the police department is pretty full, like we saw with the bond project. So they could potentially move a small department over here within their own. And they have some ideas for that, but again, that will come back later. So that space has external entry as well. They have their own set of stairs. So it could be used for a city function. If we don't need it, it's gonna be space permitting. So once it's built, once we get everything in there and we see how it's operating, that space could be utilized for something else. Because we're finishing that second level, which Atascosa has not finished yet. So it has a lot of city potential.
And this left side, that's unfinished, that could be finished later if we need it.
Correct, yes. Right now it's just open, but Atascosa left it as like a blank space. We can do whatever we want in the future. So this entire facility is built to last us probably forever. All we have to do is just build up or over.
You just jinxed us.
Yes.
She jinxed us.
My rose-colored glasses. But, so that is,
As long as the roof doesn't leak, we'll be doing
Yeah,
great.
like flat roof, I mean.
yeah.
Or the windows.
Yeah, or the window.
The only concern I have on this, but I haven't really spoke to Megan, is just the increasing construction costs. So I may hold off a little bit on the CIP funds for cages and equipment till we open bids. Cause, everything I hear about construction is not good on the cost side. So 3.7 may cover everything, or it may be tight and we may have to, have put some additional funds in for just equipment, but we'll see that once we open bids.
So because I'm good at my job, we are doing ad alternatives for a lot of things on this facility. So like the canopies that you saw that are outside, if you look at the very front of the building, there is this over the top. There's gonna be a whole bunch of ad alternates that we'll put in the bid. And so if it comes in over budget, they'll just scale back those things that we can't afford. We're also looking at different security options, different things. I know construction costs are ridiculous right now and they're only going up. Also, it's difficult to get materials, so we'll just have to work with what we have. But we have prioritized a list of what we really want to see in this facility, and then we're ready to scale back as necessary. So it could be that we're only able to do a front canopy right here, and the rest of this goes away until we have money in the budget in the future. But we have a lot of different options, materials that we could trade out if we need to try and squeeze within our budget. So
The external is steel construction?
So we have a design meeting on Thursday. Nothing is set in stone. If you have certain materials that you want us to ask about, then we can, but it will be similar to what they have in Atascosa.
I was just looking at the pictures, it looked like it had some texture to it, so that's all.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I
But
believe it was steel.
whatever we can afford. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sal, are we still okay with the lift station?
Nope.
The lift station that services,
That
this
area?
area?
We're right by
They're
the
gonna have to put a lift
plant.
station
a lift station will have to be installed with this thing in order to force that, force main, that
So we'll
waste.
need money for that.
Yes.
So that we'll have to budget for in the utility, for next year.
The plant's just 100 yards down.
The nearest,
bitty pump.
the nearest receiving, stream is at the SPCA. That's where the nearest, gravity line is, or gravity manhole is. All the other, facilities, like the transport, facility, had to put in the lift station and pump into a force main.
It's not baked into this budget.
No.
How much are you estimating?
We have not estimated anything. We don't know what the demand is gonna be, how much waste is gonna be generated. But, you know, if you put in anything between $50,000 and $100,000, that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
So you'll see that in the budget process. Back to fun stuff. So this is what the front is going to look like. We did stick with city colors, so you'll see our emblem and everything is in green, like Jackson green. This is in green. This will not be a true white just because we do get things like moss and mold and whatnot down here. It's going to be more of a gray. We talked to them about the colors, so something that hides it a little bit better. That way we pressure wash normal and not because
Moss
it's
color.
white. Yes, it's not like Jackson green. But yeah, so that's the front. Like I said, we're very excited about it. You'll see some more pictures and you can take this packet home with you. Just of what the outside is sort of going to look like. The right here where we have the exterior access to that top level, this is enclosed. So it's just another added layer of security. It gives us a lot of options of what we can do on that second floor. So there's a lot of potential with this building and we are very excited. Hopefully it comes in under budget. They're very aware of our budget and they were comfortable with it in the bidding process.
And I know it sounds expensive, it sounded expensive to the bond task force, but I just toured Pearlands, and I don't think it's roughly, it's roughly the same size, or at least handling the same animal count, and their building's 10 million.
Which is also expensive.
How much?
It's all expensive.
Pearlands was 10
Pearlands
million.
is 10 million, and I don't think their animal
More
count
than twice, right?
Yeah,
I was just
more than
3.7.
twice, and it's not too much larger than this. I mean, it's very nice, but I mean, we're being very conservative on the budget.
Do they have environmental control for the animal areas, or is it open like ours?
It's environmental
It's
control.
AC,
That's probably
yes,
the
sir.
thing driving the cost. There are some other knickknacks that I question.
We wish we
on,
could afford.
Yeah, I mean, they have a own separate room for a vet to come in. Those things drive up cost, and and then all the equipment for that. So it adds up really quick.
Yeah, we're doing a nice version of the basics.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of needs and not wants.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very nice
Oh,
still.
yeah.
They
Oh,
didn't sacrifice quality or like the look of it, the integrity of the building, which is why we are very fortunate to have that architect on board. So,
Very nice.
but that's what I have. If you guys have any discussion points or anything you want us, like I said, on Thursday we have a design meeting, which is a little bit more in depth, materials, colors, all of that. So, if you guys have any feedback, I'm happy to pass it along and see what we can integrate.
You'll be
Great job, baby.
swatches, you'll have swatches all over your desk and paint
I
colors.
might
And,
virtually though.
yeah, virtually. Yeah.
Great job.
Good job.
Thank you. That was Chief as well. His people have, we put in a lot of hours so far and there's more to come, so.
Great.
Good job, chief and people.
Chief and people. All right, we're gonna move on to item 6. Authorize city manager to execute a contract through TIPS Cooperative with National Works Inc. for Lift Station 34 repairs and amount not to exceed $77,854. We think it's gonna be less than this, right? But we're gonna. that's
We are
gonna be
hoping that
max.
it's gonna be less than this. We went, when Debbie got her quotes, knowing that we had some issues when we did before over there at OCD, that lift station, and the issues that we ran into on that, she went ahead and asked them for a little bit bigger on the quote. We do believe it's gonna be a lot less than that, but we have already ran into a small issue that has to be taken care of. So this is part of, we have gone ahead and had it into line items that we can do some lift station rehab, so we don't have to keep coming and begging for money all the time and, bringing everybody down like that. So this is going to be the first rehab that we're going to do on this. This is going to be out off of Dewberry. And basically, it's just kind of in a state of disarray. They have here, you should see as a part of your attachment a little bit of what they are looking to do. The coating, using the sewer coat and doing a little bit of bypassing and stuff like that. And then it also has a 10-year warranty upon completion. So she was very happy with what she had done over on OCD. With the sewer coat on that, and so she hopes that this experience is going to be just as well, and there really isn't anything jumping out saying that it shouldn't be.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
So a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Move on to item 7, it's update on new business coming to the city. David.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As you can see, our list looks a lot like it did 2 weeks ago. We have no new businesses that we're aware of that have applied for permits in the city of Lake Jackson. The end.
So
Hold up.
You got some updates.
What's happening at the old Food King? Like, what's going on there?
So the old Arlen's building, right? We have had full asbestos remediation in that building, and we do have permit to divide that building up. It's called a white box at this point. There is one tenant that we have a permit for, which is Family Dollar. Rumor about a second tenant, but nothing concrete because we don't have an application for that.
Well, I saw people hiring for Harbor Freight, so it's kind of, weird. They started the hiring process without applying for permits, so it's weird.
Never know.
I'm gonna nod my head on that one, perhaps.
I did see that they removed enough glass panels to put in 2 new entries in the front. So left and right of the center that it's got there, and they've been busting a bunch of concrete out too.
Yeah.
Also, that BBVA is probably not the new bank, PNC, so probably not sure that can even happen now, so.
Yeah, once again, I mean, that's down there kind of as a rumor anyways. We did have somebody come in and talk to us about that, but we have yet to see anything concrete, including, development of that specific part of their site. We've had lots of rumors come through. Eventually, some of them actually come to fruition, like Olive Garden did. That was
20
rumored
years ago.
for a long, long time.
You got bad cages on the old HEB shop.
That one is
Batting
confirmed.
cages.
Yes, that is going to be batting cages, golf simulation, and other indoor type sports mentoring, if you will, training.
It's on your list right here.
No.
I don't see it on there.
No,
What's the name of it?
I do not know.
Okay.
I don't think that's the name. It's not called I do not know. I just do not know.
Oh, okay, thank you for explaining that.
Can you refresh my memory?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shell building number 2?
Okay, so that is the 2 buildings that went in right between, on the corner of Grapevine and Winding Way. Right across from the Wendy's, next to what was Neighbors. Because the shell building just means we're gonna build a building and we're gonna attract some tenants into it.
Okay.
That same
So-
thing happened on Oyster Creek by, the boat repair shop?
Yeah, well, those were existing buildings that had
I
a
know they were, but
complete
do you
facelift.
have people coming to it?
No, not that I'm aware of.
It'd be kinda like what you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks for the update. And move on to city managers' updates.
From the last discussion, the last council meeting, we had a couple come in and talk about the limits on animals. I know animal control and the assistant chief reached out to them to discuss the possibility of filing a nuisance. They did not wish to pursue that. They still, really, the conversation led to they wanted council to, look at, solving the problem for the limit of animals and not from a nuisance side. So that limited our ability to pursue that, from that side, since there wasn't a formal complaint. The city secretary's office quickly did a comparison of surrounding cities to see how they stood on limits of animals. So you can see that in the survey attached. And so we're at the, at this point, if council wants to discuss this further, then we can put this on the next agenda.
Hey, Mo, what's a, I know what a bark collar is, what's a bark box? Did they elaborate on that?
Megan can tell you.
I don't know.
It's essentially a box that makes a high-pitched noise anytime they bark, and so it trains them not to bark.
A box is just sitting out in your backyard?
Yeah, so it works for all of them theoretically, but I have
I
to
need
imagine it
one
would
of
work
those.
for neighboring animals as well.
Yeah, so they're all in the garage, so the box is in the garage and stuff, so
And
it's.
they say the neighbor says it's been helping, so do with that what you will.
The house in the garage, your dog's in the backyard.
And
No,
it's
they're
a
in the-
high-pitched noise.
The
It's
dogs
just
are
a-
in the garage.
You
Just a
think
little,
it can work on humans too?
yeah, it's just a little
Yeah, I'm just
tiny,
kidding. Backyard, you barking.
yeah, it's just a little tiny box that, it picks up the noise, just like a bark collar.
Yeah, you can put it in the backyard. Put it anywhere.
I can tell you from my own personal experience, it doesn't work on my dogs.
What about the collar?
Well, I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, I think the collar works.
Okay,
Mine bark like crazy.
yeah. You got chickens next door?
No, he didn't eat all them.
Yeah.
He took care of
So
them.
we're
Matter of fact, do it
limited,
work on chickens too?
so we're limited, staff's limited at
Oh, we
this point in time, if we can't pursue the nuisance really complaint without a complaint. So if you would like this to be on the next agenda or a future agenda, we can. Tonight, I'm just providing this information to you.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing before, is that, like I said before, is that the way we've handled this question about restricting the number of animals is that we haven't restricted in the past because we've had these nuisance ordinances to be able to address the nuisance. Because somebody can have 12 animals, and if they can take care of them, keep them quiet, why would you restrict them? As long as it's not a health issue and all the other things. I don't know how they can do that, but I don't know. That's been the approach that we've taken in the past, is handle it by these other ordinances. But if council wants to discuss limiting it, well, then they'll say so.
The
I
big,
say, If we already have an ordinance in place that addresses it,
and I'm not saying you can't do it, the big hurdle I see of trying to put a limit is the grandfathering. Because we really haven't, pursued the licensing requirement. I don't know where we could capture in time of, here's how many animals you have, and say, okay, you're grandfathered, and it stops from there.
Yeah.
That would be a large task for staff to accomplish.
And I think if you talk to SPCA, it would probably, if we went over there and limit everybody to 2 dogs, it would impact their fostering programs that they're relying on to keep the animal count down too. So it's kind of like it's a balloon, you squeeze it from one and it pops up somewhere else. And stuff, so, but if, again, y'all think about it, and if y'all want to bring it back, let us know and we'll bring it back to discuss it.
I say leave it alone, my vote.
Okay,
Say what?
Leave it alone.
leave it alone. The option's always out there, so, all
Yes.
right, so then we'll move, and so you have the ditch on Mulberry.
We had the ditch, Mr. Geary, I think we provided some information on the ditch, the history of it. It's quite lengthy. We are working in the area on the Pine Ditch. I've talked to both Sal and Sabrina, and both feel that the ditch that we're working on takes priority over this one. So what I've asked them to do is see if we can start putting a cost estimate together for this and seeing, and Sal's given us some rough numbers to see if we can fit it in a future CIP. And I know that's been kind of discussed several times, but that's a possibility. The other possibility is, and it's not an immediate solution, is that since it's, again, close by for a future bond project, the Moss Chestnut area, and it's in that area, if there are available funds, it could be incorporated into that as well. Because we'll be doing some drainage, work there as well. I'm not a drainage expert, but I'm not keen. I don't think Sal is either. We're not keen on enclosing the ditch because that really takes a lot of capacity away. Slope paving is a different, is a different thing because really the gentleman he's really trying to protect the erosion of the backyard fence, and I can understand that. But enclosing it takes up a lot of capacity, and that could have a detrimental, a lot of money, but it could have a detrimental effect on the neighborhood drainage.
Yeah, and I have already discussed that, or at least touched upon the drainage issue on enclosing or not, and our floodplain administrator is routinely against that. So.
Initial cost, the back of the napkin, I thought I saw it was $160,000.
That's correct.
For how many feet?
270 feet.
For the slope or for the enclosure?
Slope.
For the slope.
Yes, that's the slope paving, correct.
Is it, he did not mention at the last meeting, was his building, I saw in the history where there was a forgiveness of the setback.
Yes, so originally, like I said in my chronology there, the house was there. I guess he purchased it between, after it was built there, and he added on the garage area, and he added on towards the rear, and he requested that he be granted a variance to the setback. He was granted a variance by the Zoning Board of Adjustment. He moved it from what amounts to be a 15-foot setback to the 10-foot easement that's part of that property. So he moved it 5 foot, or moved it till that 10-foot margin there. Is that creating now his problem? Could be, or it could be that the fence, and that's the reason when I said, just walking fence lines through there, I noticed that there was, that staggering of those fence lines. So we need to go establish to see where that actual fence line is, or the property line is, to establish the proper location of that fence.
May have taken a little bit of property.
I didn't want to say that.
Well, we've seen in other areas of town where people have.
Oh, definitely so.
They
That
put a
hap-
fence in and think, I think it's back there. And
That happens. And when you purchase a property, a lot of times the fence is already there, and therefore you just, at that time, there wasn't a ditch when that subdivision where he's in was started. The back subdivision was not there. It was just an empty field. So he wasn't aware, they weren't making use of anything because there was no drainage ditch. Everything was supposed to have drainage to the front. And he could have bought the property with a fence being there. And he still thinks that maybe that's his property line.
So again, it's not going to be a quick solution, and we've been discussing this, I believe, since 1979.
That's correct.
So I can understand the frustration, but it'll be an item that we'll have to discuss in the CIP and see if it reaches priority status.
And we've communicated this to Mr. Tampley?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. Is that it? All right, we'll move on to construction updates. Spin around. I could have waited until you sat down.
Our major projects, which is the downtown area, the water line is finally getting to a final stage there as far as all the water lines going through there. Of course, the connections to the properties have not been made. That takes an amount of testing testing the lines for pressure, testing the lines for disinfection. So that hasn't gotten there yet, but the actual main lines are already underground and waiting for the next step. After that, the drainage project, which is the most inconvenient of all the stages there, will begin with the major storm pipes being put in the middle of the road in some cases. So you should be expecting a tremendous amount of blowback from our citizens, but that's something that we just cannot help. That's the way that system is, designed. So you need to expect that type of situation there.
Is that same process being used in prior stuff?
We have done it in the past there, but it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And if you have weather getting into the act, it's even a worse problem. So it will be coming soon, and just making you aware that you will be hearing your phone is going to be getting hot on that situation.
Feel free to send them to me. I love to talk
Oh
to people.
my God, no.
Don't send them to Sal.
So is that something that we can somehow educate, some education out about? So people
Yeah, we can
understand better?
tell them, no, and in the past, we have put out notices, but, it
People don't
doesn't help. I mean,
Well, we
people,
sure can.
I mean,
Well, we definitely have plenty of speed bumps downtown right now, so.
oh, yes, correct, we do.
It's stop signs.
The canopy is already, is still, I mean, it's also in a standstill, even though they are working through all the problems associated with retrofitting connections to the existing structures there, because that has also been a surprise through the whole project. I think we have gotten to a point, we're just waiting on the architect and his windstorm fellow to give us the last design connection to one of the buildings, primarily where Smith Arts and the Cattery is. All the other ones have been resolved to some extent. It's a matter of just going out there and the contractor doing the finish of that mansard type of roof there.
If you haven't stopped by, I mean, the positive, gosh, I'm gonna take a page from Megan's book.
It looks great.
I mean, even without the new facade, it does really open up the area. You can really see the face of the business. So I think
Yes.
long term, it's really going to be a
Yeah, I
positive
think
thing.
people are not, what the people are saying, I think they like the look, or for the time being, I'm sure that they're gonna probably like it better once it's finished. The only thing at this time right now is the fact that they are not enclosed. The things is not weatherproof yet. So we have had, episodes where a little rainfall gets into the property, which is what we were trying to avoid in the future there. So we're trying to go with whatever we can there in order to get through this particular period until they actually enclose that area and make it weatherproof. Other projects that are ongoing, we are now in if you haven't seen, if you go down Wisatch, that project has already started. Most of the trees, if not all the trees, have gone down. I started getting some feedback from the public or from the neighbors, and some of them supposedly were not aware of what this thing was happening.
This is Lakewood Manor.
Lakewood Manor, correct. Yes, so that's another ones that you may expect some feedback on from the public. We didn't get Megan involved in that one. And we also have a project. We have as a matter of fact, we had a discussion today on the Shy Pond outfall project that I'm still trying to get there. I have some type of feedback from the contractors. We are meeting again tomorrow to discuss it over the phone to see whether or not it's a valid option that we are discussing. And then we can go from that point on. As far as developments, we have this coming planners meeting. We will be having the final plat on the Harmony Park townhouse development. I imagine that means that they are in the process of actually breaking ground. Sir?
Where's Harmony Park?
Harmony Park's at Garland Drive, and that's where they're gonna have, excuse me, about 25 units, single
A gentleman
family.
came to us several months ago about
Yes, they did.
Harmony Drive.
Correct. They've also provided us the first draft of their design for the Alden Woods townhouses at the behind Bucky's, 2004. And that also will be going before the planners, just on a administrative review, and nothing else on that. And we are getting another request from the same people that you were asking questions concerning the Shell building at Winding Way and at Grapevine. They're coming in here for a request from the planners to get a dispensation from one of the waste dumpster units that they had originally proposed. They believe that they can function out of one without impeding any line of sight from the first one that was originally planned. So, depending on what the planners feel that tomorrow that night, we won't really know about that. So this is where we stand. We're still working on the road to the mulch site. Today we were looking at it again, trying to determine what how much more we have to go.
Okay.
The only thing I have, the library is on track because it's my project. We're actually starting early. It will be starting.
I feel like something's happening here.
Good cop, bad cop. That's what we call it. They will be starting next Monday, so we are a few days ahead of schedule because, as you remember, the library wants to be open before June 1st. And so my current deadline for them is the beginning of May.
You got all books and all that stuff moved?
They're doing it starting on Monday. So you'll see they're getting the dumpsters out there this weekend, and you'll see them start promptly Monday morning.
Not for the books.
They will be moving the books. Well, the dumpsters aren't
into
for the
dumpsters,
books.
yes.
Don't give anyone a heart attack. No, they'll be moving the company. Like I said, they're turnkey, so they'll be moving the books, taking them wherever they're going. That's a good question. I don't know. Somewhere.
Okay, I guess
They're
so.
packing them up and they'll bring them back.
All right.
So that's all I care about.
Okay.
And they'll put them back on the shelves and everything, however the librarians tell them to do it. So it's going to be great, and it's on budget, on schedule. Look at that.
Very good.
Well, I have good news too. So they actually did finally break ground. Like Sal was so excited, the tractor came and dug up dirt at the skate park, so you can actually kind of see where the area is going to be. If you want to, just make sure you stop at the office, get the skate helmet, because you have to have that for the, to go on site. Just joking. So I made him do that. But it's looking good.
Get
The
a
wind,
pink helmet.
Yes, yeah, I have one just for him. So, but yeah, that's going along. The roof, the weather I know today and tomorrow is probably at a standstill just right now with the metal part.
Oh, yeah.
The stuff for the auditorium was supposed to be here on Sunday. I'm sure nothing was delivered. I'm waiting for Wayne to get back with me to see how we'll move forward with that. I'm ready to get that done. It's been going on long enough. Right now, we've, again, Garland tennis courts have been done, and I have been working with playground companies. I've been meeting with them and people for the restrooms and different things on those just to get a plan together and see which we need to do, because I'll have to work with engineering on that. So I want to be ready for that. I'm hoping by the end of the month, so then I can get with them and we can move forward to see what else we need to do. So,
Harry Blevins this Saturday?
yes, sir. Yes.
What time?
I believe it's at 4:00. Yeah.
Why so late?
They're doing with opening ceremonies with Little League. So yeah, we'll do
Gotcha.
that first. I'm meeting with them tomorrow to
Good.
finalize
4
all
o'clock
of that.
Saturday.
Yes, yeah.
Any tickets left on the,
We do. We still have tickets left. They're going slow. I don't know what the problem is, but we even went out last Friday and started hitting up some of the restaurants and stuff where a bunch of people were. I figured St. Patrick's Day, and we just started going out and we were on our phones selling them that way too. So just to get the word out there. It seems like a lot of things are just a little slower. I know even the leagues had it this year, with some of the registration.
When is that, April the 14th?
yeah.
Yes, April 14th. So I didn't see your name with your tickets yet.
Oh,
I'm
waiting.
So, yes, come
This is
on.
for the
You
Easter egg
can
hunt?
reserve me
Yes.
too.
Yeah?
They're there. They're waiting for you. You just got to come pay for them or you don't get them. So, yes. We have the teen one also. So we're almost at 100 on those. That's a good thing. Next year we want to kind of change it up. So, but we stuck with the plan this year, but that'll be a fun thing too.
You don't have your phone with you right now? You can sell it right now.
I do have my phone, so I don't have the tickets, but I would certainly
I'll
get them
bring
for
my
you.
Lone Star card with me.
Your Lone Star.
That you can buy right now.
Yeah. No, you can.
He's
yeah.
upselling.
Yeah.
I sent my husband to buy two. He doesn't know exactly what I've signed him up for.
Oh, he doesn't know. Oh, it's fun. Yeah, we have people keep asking us, and I'm like, it's less than a minute. I'm telling you, less than a minute of your life. It'll be fun. So, yep. All right. Thanks.
All right, very good. Items of community interest.
In the evening.
JB, you got anything?
No, sir.
Rhonda?
I'm good.
No, sir.
Vinny? Matt, anything to communicate of interest
Besides vote.
beside vote? Yeah.
No, I'm good, thank you.
None? All right, I'm good too. So staff, anything, Modesto?
No, I've talked enough.
You've talked enough. You hadn't already talked. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Harry Butterson's at 4?